The Journey of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301, A Serious Mission. The mission Yang Mu received this time was a large-scale mineral exploration activity outside, and it was also an incident of investigating illegal mining. It was precisely because of this that Yang Mu realized that this mission was very unusual. Because in the Sonai star field, illegal mining is impossible to be carried out by private individuals. Such activities are completely controlled by the military of various countries, or by mineral companies designated by the military. However, various countries have divided this star field a long time ago and demarcated many boundaries, which are impossible to cross openly. However, this does not mean that the other party will not secretly conduct a comprehensive exploration of the mineral-rich Sonai star field. Once rare mineral deposits are discovered, no country will be concerned about the so-called divided areas. So it is precisely because of this that Zhang was so eager to send the entire team to excavate after discovering the star crystal. A big reason for this is that he is afraid that there will be illegal miners from other countries. Once the other party finds that this is valuable, it is almost a fight to the death. But this time it is completely different. In this operation, almost half of the troops of the entire base were dispatched, and the destination was still the marginal area under the jurisdiction of base number 6. In this way, this mission has changed its flavor. Although it is equivalent to patrolling one's own area, because it is a marginal area, it is almost possible to engage in close combat with troops from other countries at any time. Perhaps this is why all teams are required to be fully armed. Yang Mu did not have extra time to delve into these things. As soon as he received the order, he immediately organized the team to prepare, and filled all the places where weapons could be loaded. At the same time, some replacements were added to these to make full preparations for this operation. After preparations were completed, Yang Mu's team directly ejected the mecha from the special exit, and the entire team and auxiliary maintenance personnel boarded the base's ship from the personnel exit. This time the base sent 2 ships, an ore transport ship and a motor ship, a ship equivalent to 2/3 of the size of a frigate, with slightly weaker attack power, but flexible enough. All the mechas of everyone were placed on the motor ship to ensure that they could be used at any time, and the mining equipment was carried on the transport ship. As soon as Yang Mu boarded the ship, he saw a familiar figure. It was Chen Wei, the deputy commander of the Mecha regiment, and behind him was the current captain of the first team, Corey. Corey was originally the captain of the third team, and was promoted to the first team when the organization was reorganized. Now the other party also saw Yang Mu's 13th team coming over, and turned around and looked at Yang Mu, who was walking in front. Yang Mu, I haven't seen you for a few days, Deputy Commander, you are joking. We are all in the same base. If you want to see me, just call me anytime. Seeing Chen Wei fighting with him familiarly, Yang Mu immediately smiled. Haha, okay, is the team ready? Chen Wei laughed. Report to the commander, everything is ready. Yang Mu immediately put away his somewhat casual state, said seriously and loudly, and Chen Wei nodded. Since the Zinking 4-star incident, Yang Mu became the only officer in the surprise attack team who stayed in the regiment and was promoted to higher rank. In addition, with his previous reputation of slaughtering level 4 creatures alone, and now he is only 19 years old, Yang Mu is considered a top figure in the entire regiment. Corey also stepped forward at this time and stretched out his hand to Yang Mu. Yang Mu, long time no see, long time no see. Yang Mu also smiled and greeted Corey. Although the two were not very familiar with each other, they had met before and were very respectful to each other. Chen Wei stood by, but did not let the two greet each other again. Instead, he pulled the two directly to an office cabin on the side, and then sent 2 messages to Yang Mu and Corey's personal terminals. As soon as he arrived in this room, Chen Wei's relaxed expression on his face was immediately concealed, and then he looked at Yang Mu and Corey in the office seriously. Yang Mu and Corey looked down at the things sent from their personal terminals at this time. Looking at the things on it, Yang Mu and Corey showed surprised expressions. In this document, it is shown that this operation is not ordinary, and even an important task is marked on it. Kill any creatures found. As Yang Mu read it slowly, he also saw more things in this action plan compared to the order sent to him earlier. The place to go this time is a super large asteroid on the edge of the jurisdiction of Beacon Tower number 6, but a few days ago, the unmanned reconnaissance aircraft found that the internal material had spread to the periphery during the reconnaissance, and the shape of the asteroid's exterior had also changed to a certain extent. Base number 6 had actually marked this place long ago, so it could immediately discover the changes here, and this asteroid is rich in minerals and many rare element mines, and base number 6 is also very careful. However, due to the large size of the asteroid and its location on the edge, it is not easy to mine. Zhang has always designed a plan to pull the asteroid into a more internal position through the continuous dragging of ships, and then mine it safely. But now, this asteroid has an abnormal situation, and it seems that someone must be mining it. But when the drone was about to continue the exploration, it was suddenly shot down, and the base instantly lost signal with the drone. But at the last moment, the machine sent back a photo, and in the corner of this photo, a gray body appeared, and looking at the style signal of the mecha, it was the Galaxy Eagle mecha of PAA. This mecha, which is said to have both sky-high functions and costs, once broke all the performance data of all standard mechas in various countries, and clamored to become the most powerful 4th-level standard mecha. In the end, it was driven down by the Tengsh series mecha launched by Yan Shenfu. But this cannot underestimate the ability of this mecha. This mecha is still a coveted mecha by various countries, and now this mecha has appeared here, and it can be clearly determined that it is the powerful Galaxy Eagle mecha, not even an improved version. The halberd-cutting mecha of Yang Mu and others is still slightly inferior to this mecha. But the appearance of this mecha here undoubtedly makes all the situations very clear, which means that the people who appeared on the asteroid are the people of PAA. This is the junction of the two sides, and the other side went out to mine minerals. But actually dispatched this advanced mecha. Is it just to guard the mine? Of course not. After the analysis of a group of staff, everyone came to a surprising conclusion. That is, the appearance of these people is not simple. This place is very remote, and remoteness means that it is not easy to be noticed by others, so it is easy to do a lot of things. Because if the other party drives straight in from here, it can quickly divide the entire jurisdiction without knowing it, and with this powerful Galaxy Eagle mecha, as long as the number is sufficient, the other party will definitely easily take over the entire area, and then the number 6 base will not even have time to ask for help. But after all, only one mecha was seen. This kind of mecha is also very precious to the other party, and it is impossible to have comprehensive equipment, so Zhang and others think that this may be just a small team. Although it may be just a small team, in order to be prudent, Zhang still sent out half of the mecha team of the entire base. It seems that Zhang does not want to let it go, and even has some other ideas. Because there is another item in this document, that is to preserve the other party's mecha or personnel as much as possible. Yang Mu and Corey both raised their heads, looking a little serious, and Chen Wei saw that the two had finished reading, but he also spoke. You have already seen that this is our current situation. We can even say that this operation is very dangerous, and in order to complete this mission, we sent out the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th, and 13th teams, Chen Wei explained one by one, but Yang Mu was stunned for a moment. Yes, we have sent out almost all the powerful teams of the Mecha Regiment. Just to complete this mission without any mistakes, Yang Mu and Corey looked at each other, and saw a hint of heaviness in each other's eyes. Then what is our battle plan at that time? Yang Mu turned his head and asked, but Chen Wei seemed to have planned it long ago and sent a battle deployment map to the two again. This time we will divide our troops into 2 groups and attack with a pincer attack, and you two will lead the other teams respectively. Chapter 302 Arrangements and Emergencies. Captain, I knew that this so-called edge mining mission was a cover, and it must be a fight with a team from other countries. I just didn't expect that the other party would actually send out a mecha like the Galaxy Hawk, in a cabin in the mobile ship, Kunsang said with dissatisfaction, knowing that he was going to do an important attack mission this time, and that there was a Galaxy Hawk mecha with stronger performance than the Halberd mecha. His tone revealed a lack of confidence. What are you afraid of? PAA is not that strong. Even if they have such a mecha, they will still be beaten to pulp. Shirley, who had a big braid, sat in a seat beside her, but said confidently. But as the other party said this, his hand kept reaching to the side. Next to Shirley, Yunlong was sitting there, with no expression on his face, and he didn't express his opinion, but just touched the orange cat in his arms. Yang Mu still couldn't understand why Yanlong had the privilege of being able to take such an orange cat everywhere, and Yang Mu only recently learned that Yanlong even took this orange cat with him when he was fighting. Yanlong made a small life support box for it, and every time he fought, he would put it into the empty space in the cockpit where a pair of helmets and holographic helmets were originally stored. Yanlong was almost inseparable from this little thing, and of course, he never let others hold his Huzi. Shirley had touched it a few times at most, but had never really held it. So the two of them were secretly competing with each other, while Huzi lay in Yanlong's arms, looking relaxed and content. Richard stood next to Yang Mu and heard Yang Mu explain the real mission to him and others. At this moment, his brows were furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. Yang Mu, what is our position in this pincer attack you mentioned? Both sides are the main attack. We will attack from the east. This team will be led by me, and the other team will be led by Captain Corey of Team 1. Yang Mu sat next to him and said slowly, and at the same time put out the holographic topography of the entire asteroid and pointed to a place on it. What is the specific deployment? Richard asked again. Although several teams are divided into one side, each team will still fight independently during the battle. This is the plan that Yang Mu and Chen Wei and Kei Li came up with after discussing together. Originally, Deputy Head Chen Wei's idea was that since Yang Mu and Kei Li were leading several teams, they would provide comprehensive leadership for these teams, but Yang Mu still rejected this idea, because each team had a tacit cooperation. If they were forced to work together, it might actually reduce their combat effectiveness. And when they reach the battlefield, they must enter the asteroid. At this time, if there is dispersion and the command cannot be graded, then there will inevitably be some emergencies that cannot be well coordinated. So Yang Mu finally proposed that the overall problems should be decided by the three people, while some small problems should be decided by the captains of each team. Everyone should understand that this is an important opportunity to test our tacit understanding and running in these days, so everyone must be 100% alert. At this point, Yang Mu changed his tone and said to everyone seriously. Everyone understood that this mission might be more dangerous than before. And whether it could succeed might depend on the tacit understanding between everyone, so they nodded one after another. At this time, the motor ship that everyone was riding on had already gone into the deep space. The two ships were tightly attached to each other and slowly drove towards the target. In the vast starry sky, interstellar dust was scattered everywhere. These dusts even blocked the light projected from distant stars, making this area unusually dark and even more cold and lonely. And somewhere in this deep space, there was an irregular round asteroid with a diameter of tens of kilometers rolling slowly. The huge size of this asteroid even made it produce a certain gravity. Around it, a circle of small asteroids were attracted to circle around it, but because of the different orbits, these attracted asteroids collided almost every moment, and some asteroids hit the asteroid hard and then embedded in it. This asteroid seemed to be growing in this way. Perhaps in the distant future, this asteroid will gradually become a planet. But now, inside this asteroid, there is a different scene. 200 meters below the surface of the asteroid, several huge tunnels dug by humans are crisscrossed. From time to time, noises can be heard from them. You can also see some unmanned mining trucks transporting some ore and slag to the outside in an endless stream. Ian, how long do you think it will take to dig this damn place? At a place where tunnels intersect, a space completely wrapped in metal is built. Countless instruments are placed in the huge space. On one wall of this space are all display screens, which show the mining progress of engineers in different tunnels. An officer sitting in front of the console suddenly asked. In a corner of this room, a man sat on a portable chair, facing the wall. The white light in the room shone on his back, casting an elongated shadow in the corner. This is a well-proportioned young man. Under the neat hat, you can see a neat golden crew cut, but his face is full of gloom. A handsome man with an ordinary face, but a depressed expression makes the whole place full of a creepy feeling. Ian held the knife in his hand, looked at the wall in front of him, and snorted. Don't worry, there are still 10 days at most, and these tunnels will be enough. The officer sitting in front of the console heard Ian's words, and his face was not relaxed at all, but showed an unhappy expression, very impatient. Alice, why did the base send us to such a place? The beauties on the Lanchester planet are still waiting for my patronage. Ian did not continue the other party's words, but leaned back in the chair, shaking the knife in his hand for a few times, then holding it in his hand, and finally slamming it hard against the wall in front of him. Turning the chair, Ian stood up, and then walked towards the door next to him. "Hey, where are you going? It's too boring here, let's go out for a walk." "What are you going to do? You still want to drive your Galaxy Eagle out? Have you forgotten the warning above? You can't expose your team here casually. Have you forgotten the unmanned reconnaissance aircraft of PAJR a few days ago? I hope we can kill the other party in time and not leak any information." Listening to the words of the officer, Ian stopped his steps, and then kicked the steel door of the room fiercely with some dissatisfaction. "I can't stay here, it makes people irritated. I know you guys are like this, but Ian, this mission is very important. If you mess up, General Galen can kick your head and my head like a ball." Hearing the other party talking about General Galen, Ian also thought of the guy called the Big Devil, and the anger on his face suddenly became less. His eyes kept scanning the ground, and finally he sat back in his chair honestly. The officer saw that Ian stopped moving, and he was relieved, and then he stood up and prepared to have a cup of coffee. But before the other party took 2 steps, the alarm sounded suddenly, and the red light flashed in the whole space. The officer turned his head suddenly, and then rushed to the control console. The screen jumped to the outer edge of the asteroid. Looking at the several dark green mechas flying above, looking at the white tiger heads on the mecha shoulder armor, and the type of mecha that the system immediately retrieved, the officer's eyes widened instantly. "Damn it. PAJR's people found us." Our self-cloaking trip mines were triggered by the other party. Ian's movements froze, and he stood up immediately. Chapter 303 Entering the Asteroid. In the deep space, 20 halberd-chopping mechas landed fiercely on the surface of one side of the huge asteroid, relying on the gravity of the asteroid and the adsorption force generated by the mechas themselves to land steadily on the asteroid. "Quickly find the entrance, our actions have been exposed." As soon as he landed, Yang Mu quickly said to the people around him. Just when he was sneaking over, an infrared trip mine hidden in the surrounding asteroids was triggered. Although there was no explosion, Yang Mu could see a wave of ripples spreading directly out. It was obvious that someone had deliberately placed such a thing there, and the function of this thing was obviously used for early warning. So Yang Mu said to the channel as soon as he landed. But on the surface of this asteroid, no exposed entrances can be seen at this moment. Although a scan has just been carried out, no entrances are still seen. What Yang Mu can think of is that these entrances may have been carefully disguised by the other party. But now it is necessary to find it immediately. The trip mine has been triggered, and the people inside must have known that he and others are coming. If he does not make a preemptive attack, the situation may change a lot. As Yang Mu gave the order, everyone immediately started to move, checking the surroundings in a team formation. Yang Mu also led his team to search the surroundings. The airborne radar could not see any difference on the surface of the asteroid. Yang Mu suddenly had an idea and thought of the infrared scanner. Generally speaking, the core of an asteroid will be hotter than the surface, and the other party has obviously been transporting the waste out of it, so there will definitely be different situations. Therefore, as long as the temperature is different, it is very likely to find different places. As soon as he said it, Yang Mu immediately ordered this method, and at the same time he turned on the infrared scanner to scan the surroundings. Sure enough, a moment later, in a rugged tunnel in the distance, a faint orange-yellow color finally appeared in the dark blue picture. Obviously, that was the entrance. Yang Mu made a prompt decision and led his team to the location of the discovered mine. When they arrived there, it looked no different from the surface of the asteroid, and the team members looked at each other in bewilderment. At this time, Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to raise his foot and step down hard. Sure enough, the entire mecha's feet suddenly disappeared into the land, as if it was submerged in it. Yang Mu's eyes lit up, and he manipulated the electromagnetic rifle in his hand to sweep around fiercely. His feet suddenly flashed for a moment, and then a black hole was revealed. Although the hole was vertical, it was diagonally downward inside, and the hole was wide enough, with a diameter of 20 meters. Yang Mu only took a look and knew that this was the trace left by a large excavator. There were also such mining equipment in base number 6, and they were also brought here for this operation, on the transport ship. When the people around saw this, they all came over immediately. Yang Mu did not hesitate and immediately ordered the surrounding teams to come over, and then he was the first to go down the mine. In the dark mine, it was pitch dark. Yang Mu carefully moved forward with the help of the mecha's light, followed by more than a dozen mechas, slowly moving forward. It was only less than a moment, and at this moment, only 70 meters away from the surface of the asteroid, 3 forks suddenly appeared here, leading to different places. At this point, everyone stopped consciously, waiting for Yang Mu to give new orders. The 7th and 8th teams will each go one way, and the remaining 11th team will continue to follow me. Yang Mu quickly gave the order. Remember, you must scan and make a topographic map when you pass through each tunnel. Understood? After saying that, the captains of several teams responded at the same time, and then led their respective team members to the 2 passages on both sides. A total of 9 teams were dispatched from the base this time. Yang Mu led 4 teams, Kari led another 4 teams, and the remaining team protected 2 ships. Seeing that the 2 teams walked into the passages on both sides, Yang Mu did not hesitate and immediately led the remaining 2 teams to the mine in front of him. Yang Mu actually did not like this kind of mine. This narrow environment is really disadvantageous to mecha combat, not to mention that there may be the Galaxy Eagle mecha in it. But this is an order, and Yang Mu had to execute it, so Yang Mu could only keep his weapon in firing state and move forward slowly and carefully. From time to time, the channel received reports of the positions of a number of teams, and some teams even found unmanned mining vehicles, which further indicated that there were indeed people mining here. As they entered the mine little by little, Yang Mu and others became more careful. The channel suddenly fell into silence, and the entire helmet was left with only the mechanical sound of the mecha moving and the sound of the surrounding stones being crushed. But suddenly, a buzzing sound of an electromagnetic rifle came from the channel, and Yang Mu immediately stopped. What's the situation? Which team? Report the situation immediately, Yang Mu shouted quickly in the channel, and at this time, he heard the sound of retreat. Then the next moment, the entire channel was filled with a whistling sound, and then there was an order to open fire. Everyone behind Yang Mu was immediately surprised. At this time, each channel kept asking what happened. Yang Mu also changed channels in the same way, trying to determine what happened. Captain, listen. What sound? At this time, Kun Sang spoke, and Yang Mu immediately stopped what he was doing, and the people around him began to be alert with their weapons. At this time, Yang Mu also heard a sound, a humming sound, but with a rumbling sound. This sound did not seem to be the arrival of the mecha, but it was very terrifying, recalling in this empty tunnel. Logically, there should be no sound in this vacuum environment, and the sound from solids should not be this whistling sound. Yang Mu carefully identified the sound and found that it came from the depths of the tunnel. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha forward, projected the light into it, and carefully explored the situation. Gradually, the sound became louder and louder, but it was getting closer and closer to him. Yang Mu immediately made a warning move, raising the muzzle of the gun towards the inside. At that time, Yang Mu finally saw the situation in the depths of the tunnel. In the distance, a white barrier appeared at this moment, mixed with countless flying sand and rocks, rolling and rushing. Yang Mu squinted his eyes and looked over. And then the next moment he immediately widened his eyes and looked surprised. Everyone, move aside and fix the mecha immediately. Yang Mu turned around and shouted loudly, ordering the mecha behind to hide immediately. Yang Mu already knew what the thing with the whistling sound was. It was gas. The gas discharged from the depths of the asteroid was directly released into the vacuum. In this case, the leaked gas would bring a huge impact, which might be why everyone heard the buzzing sound. This was caused by the friction with the surrounding rock walls, and then transmitted to everyone's ears through the metal components of the mecha. The gas alone was not very scary, but if there were stones mixed in it, once the mecha was not able to stand firm due to the impact, it would roll over at best, or be attacked by these things at worst, and even cause big problems in the end. When Yang Mu shouted so loudly, the white barrier had already come whistling. The sound transmitted through the surrounding dense stones suddenly filled Yang Mu's entire brain. At the same time, a fierce impact came, and the alarm in the mecha sounded loudly. Yang Mu's mecha was also directly rushed out by this sudden attack, and then the mecha fell heavily on its back to the ground. The others were in a similar situation. Although Yang Mu reminded them, the surrounding mine walls were very smooth and it was difficult to find a fixed place. Almost everyone was directly overturned by the sudden influx of gas and rolled backwards. Yang Mu rolled again, and finally ejected the chain sword, fiercely forked it into the crack of the rock under his feet, and stopped the mecha. Is everyone okay? Yang Mu hurriedly said after the gas storm, and at this time, the holographic helmet flashed. Yang Mu immediately turned his head and saw several huge figures jumping in the depths of the tunnel with the help of the light of the mecha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, Fighting Entrapped. Seeing those huge shadows leaping, Yang Mu stood up quickly. At this time, a blue light suddenly flashed in front of him. Yang Mu dangerously controlled the mecha to dodge from the side. At this time, he saw a missile flying over and hitting a mecha behind him, which suddenly exploded. Xiao Su, the captain of the 11th team, shouted at this time, and it was obvious that the person who was hit was their team member. A cloud of dust rose in the passage again, but Yang Mu immediately ordered everyone to prepare for battle and ordered the firepower mecha to directly cover the tunnel in front. The fierce firepower immediately covered the pass, but Yang Mu immediately turned on the infrared camera and carefully observed the situation inside. After the explosion, the passage suddenly became quiet, but Yang Mu's instrument showed that there was nothing in front. When everyone was wondering, the voice of other teams came from the channel, Galaxy Eagle. It's Galaxy Eagle. Before the voice fell, Yang Mu suddenly looked up, and his pupils suddenly shrank. It turned out that at the top of the tunnel, two huge figures appeared above the heads of the crowd. The lights on the mechas were shining, and they were two gray mechas, and the limbs of the mechas were very slender, and the weapons in their hands were shining coldly. These were the Galaxy Eagle mechas, and there were two of them. The opponent seemed to have turned off its own gravity device, floating up under the microgravity of the entire asteroid, and it was in front of them without knowing when. Be careful above. Retreat, attack immediately, Yang Mu said loudly at the first time, and the surrounding mechas also looked in the direction Yang Mu pointed at this time. Looking at the mechas that suddenly appeared above, they trembled in their hearts. But before everyone raised their guns to shoot, the opponent suddenly fired a wave of ammunition, which was a flash bomb. The sudden attack of the Galaxy Eagle mechas caused everyone in the holographic helmet to be dazzled by the bright light, causing temporary blindness before the helmets automatically adjusted the brightness. Yang Mu was the same, but he turned his head and blinked his eyes at the first moment, and at the same time, the weapon in his hand directly fired at that side, and the surrounding team members also made such attacks under the same circumstances. But it was too late at this time. The opponent's sudden attack, coupled with the advantageous position, at the first moment, the two Galaxy Eagle mechas pounced directly, and then the long swords in their hands swung violently, directly towards the mechas of Yang Mu and others. But the next moment, Yang Mu heard the sound of metal cutting, and at the same time, there was the sound of teammates struggling to resist. The opponent took action. Yang Mu came back to his senses at the first moment, and at the same time, the weapon in his hand was replaced with two chain swords. His eyes quickly captured the target, found the mecha closest to him, and launched an attack at the first moment. The two mechas were also confident enough that they jumped directly into the middle of the mechas when they attacked, and launched an attack on the mechas that were obviously firepower types. Back off, get out of here first. Yang Mu couldn't launch a large-scale attack in such a small space, so he shouted loudly to everyone. The mechas of everyone were too crowded, so the whole venue became more chaotic. If the situation could not be quickly alleviated, casualties would occur immediately. When Yang Mu's order came out, Yunlong's halberd-cutting mecha was the first to move. The opponent was a long-range attack mecha, which was not at an advantage in this place, so the opponent quickly jumped out at this time, and directly pulled away another long-range mecha at this time. At the same time, the team's usual tacit training took effect at this time. Yang Mu and Kun Sang restrained a mecha at the first time. Richard was close to Shirley's mecha. Seeing that the opponent was going to quickly solve Shirley's mecha, he arrived first and directly resisted the opponent's attack. The captain of the 13th team quickly stepped forward to restrain the opponent. The firepower mecha immediately withdrew and retreated to the back, gradually making room in the field, and Yang Mu was finally able to use his strength. In this place, the team led by Yang Mu has an absolute advantage in numbers, and the actions of this kind of terrain mecha cannot be exerted to a large extent. Therefore, as long as Yang Mu can control the situation, there will be no problem. Relying on numbers, he will definitely be able to suppress the opponent. However, this situation did not last long. Yang Mu had not even caused any substantial damage to the mecha in front of him. These mechas seemed to have received some unified orders. Then in the next moment, The two mechas swung away the surrounding mechas, and then turned around and went to the direction outside the tunnel together. Seeing the two gray mechas spiral outward at this time, Yang Mu was immediately surprised. The opponent used a combined attack technique, but now it was going outside, while Yunlong and others had just gone out not long ago. Yang Mu quickly ordered everyone to follow up, and at the same time, the hot weapons in his hands did not stop, and fiercely fired at the three targets, but it did not play any role. The opponent's speed was very fast, and relying on the characteristics of the mecha, the opponent completely threw himself and others away. At this time, many voices rang out in the channel, and Chen Wei's voice cut in at the same time. Call Yang Mu, call Quarry, all teams, withdraw. There are many local mechas outside, about 20 of them, and the mobile ship needs support. The sudden order made Yang Mu suddenly realize that the situation outside had changed, and it seemed that he had suffered a serious blow. Yang Mu called the captains of the other two teams in the channel. The other team seemed to have been attacked by the Galaxy Eagle, and the situation on Quarry's side was the same, and he was rushing outside. In such a short period of time, there were already wounded in the team. The sudden attack of the Galaxy Eagle made the team suffer. All the mechas were heading outside, but at this time, an unexpected situation occurred. When Yang Mu passed the last fork and was about to rush out of the last passage of several dozen meters, a violent shaking suddenly came from the surrounding area of the tunnel, and at this time a flash of light could be seen far ahead. At the same time, a sound came from the back, as if something had collapsed. "What's going on ahead?" Yang Mu asked immediately, because there was no way to transmit sound in a vacuum, and the sound transmitted through solid objects could not provide any effective information. The next moment, news from Chen Wei and others came through the channel. The exit was blown up, and now there were only 3 teams of mechas outside. But the situation outside was extremely serious, because many mechas emerged from nowhere, and their target was very clear, that is, the 2 ships sent by base number 6. The other party obviously wanted to catch everyone in one fell swoop. Yang Mu's face was bulging with veins. The sudden situation made him and others be tricked, and the other party's fierce means also caught everyone off guard. Yang Mu rushed forward quickly, but saw that the relatively smooth and tall entrance of the cave had been blocked by large pieces of rubble. And here, it is still dozens of meters away from the ground. Chapter 305 Ways to Get Out. The situation on the battlefield took a sharp turn for the worse in an instant. Yang Mu and his men were trapped in the tunnel inside the asteroid. Listening to the various defensive orders that kept coming from the channel, Yang Mu's heart suddenly became extremely anxious. Kun Sang controlled the mecha and walked forward, shoveling the gravel in front of him with a chain sword, but the result was that there was no change in this place. The stone was hard enough, but it was almost impossible to shovel it open with the weapons of the mecha. Moreover, the length of the buried tunnel might be as high as 10 or 20 meters. At such a depth, even if everyone dug out at that time, it would be useless, because by then, the people outside would definitely be wiped out by the other side. Damn, how can we dig this? Captain, what should we do now? Kun Sang chopped the gravel in front of him fiercely, then turned his head and asked Yang Mu in a somewhat anxious manner. The captain of the surrounding 11th team also came forward at this time. The other side only had firepower mechas and long-range mechas that went out, and now they were obviously very anxious about the situation outside. Yang Mu lowered his head and quickly thought about how to break through. It was obviously impossible to dig out directly now. The mechas here were all melee mechas. The mechas with heavy firepower had been withdrawn before. Now without the support of heavy firepower, such thick gravel was almost difficult to shake. The number of missiles loaded on these mechas was not large. Before they were used up, these places might not necessarily break through. But if I didn't go out now, the situation outside might continue to deteriorate, even to the point where the ship was destroyed and people died. The number of halberd mechas trapped in the entire underground might be around 30, which meant that there were only a dozen mechas outside, but they had to face the equally powerful enemy mechas such as the Galaxy Eagle. This was obviously a battle of unequal strength. The numerical advantage that my side had originally had was gone at this moment. I wanted to go out at this time, but the exit had been blocked. I wanted to continue to go deeper inside, and the innermost passage had just collapsed. Now there was almost only one way left in front of me, that was to find another exit, but was it possible? This is a completely unfamiliar place, and the surrounding area has not been measured. It may take more time to find a new exit. Yang Mu's expression was a little ferocious, but he still decided to give it a try. Kun Sang, you two scout mechas go to other places to find an exit, and the others help to continue digging, Yang Mu said to Kun Sang and another scout mecha standing aside. The two mechas looked at each other, and then ran back to the previous intersection and went to other tunnels. Yang Mu and others began to continue digging here. This is also a blessing in disguise. This time, Yang Mu brought a Dragon Slayer arm for the mission, and the Dragon Slayer arms of other teams also arrived at the base in the past few days, so now there are people here who are equipped with this thing. Seeing Yang Mu start the Dragon Slayer arm, the captain of the 11th team also brightened up and started to do the same. The remaining mechas all started to move at this time, and they followed suit to dig, but the progress was very slow. After a few minutes, the channel was still filled with fierce fighting, but the stones blocking the tunnel had not been cleared much, and there was no news from Kun Sang. Yang Mu's heart gradually became anxious again. At this time, a team member suddenly complained, "It would be great if there were a cannon to fire at it." Yang Mu was stunned for a moment, and then he called Chen Wei in surprise on the channel. "Deputy Captain, I have a way." On the other side of the channel, Chen Wei, who was extremely anxious at the moment, was using all his strength to protect the motor ship and transport ship from fatal attacks. At this time, he heard Yang Mu's call from the channel and immediately responded in surprise. "Yang Mu, have you found the exit?" "Deputy Captain, listen to me, I will send you the location of a cave entrance now. Note that the entrance of this cave is at a 45-degree angle. You must pay attention to the direction." Yang Mu did not respond to the other party's words, but said this. Chen Wei listened to all this, but his face was puzzled. "Yang Mu? What are you going to do?" "Deputy Captain, it's up to you next." Yang Mu didn't say much, and directly marked the location of the hole he came in from to the other party, and also sent the tunnel trend map to the other party. "Captain, is the electromagnetic gun on the bow of the mobile ship still usable?" "It's still usable." "Yang Mu, what are you going to do?" Chen Wei said with a confused look on his face, but he suddenly froze and instantly understood Yang Mu's mind. "That's right, I just want you to use the electromagnetic gun of the mobile ship to blast out the exit for us." Ian felt very disdainful of the group of guys who came to his door. He was dozing off, but the other party automatically sent a pillow to him. After the trip mine was triggered, Ian quickly came out of the central control room and summoned his team to attack. The Galaxy Eagle team he led had 10 Galaxy Eagle mechas, and there were also 3 other types of mecha teams with 15 mechas to assist in the battle. Although his team was sent to such a place, and stayed there for more than half a month, Ian knew that this was a completely different mission. This mission was taken very seriously by the superiors, and they repeatedly told me to take it seriously and ensure that there would be no mistakes. I didn't care about such mining at all, and even thought it was easy. But when I came here, the harsh environment gave me a head-on blow, and then there was a PAJR unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. Although it was killed in time, the news still leaked. This sudden small fleet is a threat. And this also released a signal that this place is taken seriously. Ian and the officers in the control room had a brief discussion, and the conclusion was very simple. That is to kill all the enemies who arrived here, and never let any of the other side escape from here. Then I also formulated my own attack plan, exhausting all the air in the core control room, passing through the surrounding tunnels, and letting the mechas follow up, and finally hit them head-on. And I took 2 mechas out of a hidden passage, went around the back of the opponent's ship, and destroyed the opponent's ship. As long as this step is completed, the opponent will have no chance of turning the tables. But what I didn't expect was that after the exit was blown down, there were still dozens of mechas outside the asteroid. Although all my troops had come out, the combat effectiveness of this force was obviously very strong. Although I and others could deal with it relatively easily, they could not completely eliminate the opponent in a short time. Even under the cooperation of the firepower of the ship, the opponent had already caused his side to lose a Galaxy Eagle and several ordinary mechas. The battle was fierce, and all Ian could do was to try his best to eliminate these attacks from the opponent and take down the opponent's ship as soon as possible. The long knife in his hand had just removed the arm of an enemy mecha in front of him, but Ian saw that the ship not far away had changed. The ship actually began to turn slowly, shifting the direction of the naval gun that was originally used to fight against him and others. This was a good opportunity. Ian immediately manipulated the mecha to change position, ready to seize this opportunity to give the stupid commander a fatal blow. But at this moment, Ian suddenly saw that the naval gun began to light up, and the blue arc kept flashing. Then in the next second, a huge shell shot out. Following the trajectory, Ian saw the shell hit the surface of the asteroid fiercely, splashing countless gravel. More chapters for the book Friends. Gentle confession, thank you for the book Friends reward. Chapter 306 Breakthrough. When the electromagnetic cannon bombarded the surface of the asteroid, Ian didn't even immediately realize why the other party did this, but when he saw many enemy mechas attacking in that direction, Ian's mind suddenly woke up as if it had been electrified. These people want to rescue the people trapped in the asteroid. Realizing this situation, Ian immediately issued an order to the channel. Order all Galaxy Eagle mechas to take down the enemy ships at all costs at this moment. Ian knew that this was an opportunity he must seize. The other party was now eager to seek reinforcements. If the mechas below came out, even if there were only a few, it would affect the entire battle situation. What he needed was a complete victory. Now, for this victory, he had to fight hard. Ian was ruthless and controlled the mecha to rush towards the motor ship. The long knife in his hand kept poking, throwing the surrounding stones towards the motor ship, and at the same time, all the missiles in his weapon slots were emptied during the flight. The other 9 Galaxy Eagle mechas also took action at this time, making the same movements as their captain. In this starry sky, 10 mechas surrounded the mobile ship in a circular state. Countless attacks hit the energy shield of the mobile ship, but because the electromagnetic gun was turned on, the energy of the energy shield had been weakened a bit, and it was no longer enough to withstand such intensive attacks. Sure enough, the next moment, the energy shield launcher was shut down directly, and the fierce attack hit the surface of the ship directly. Although there were multiple close-in weapon systems such as close-in defense guns to help resist, there were still several places that were attacked, and the ship had begun to suffer losses and casualties. Chen Wei in the ship's command room was anxious at the moment. The surrounding area was already ringing with alarms, but no results had been achieved yet. The tunnel seemed to have not been opened yet, and the mechas of Yang Mu and others had not come out of it. Report to the commander, the left close-in defense gun is lost, cabin 27 is damaged, and there are casualties, engine power is damaged, and the gravity deflection system fails. Orders were reported one by one at this time, and everyone's faces were anxious. Chen Wei was also full of anxiety, but at this moment he could only obey the orders of the captain of the mobile ship. At this moment, Chen Wei, who was sitting in the secondary main seat, hoped most that Yang Mu and others could come out immediately. Space mechas have always been known as small starship killers. For such a small mobile ship, it is already very difficult to resist the attack of dozens of powerful mechas. On the surface of the asteroid, Yunlong was standing back to back with Shirley's mecha. Shirley's mecha bombarded the ammunition on its weapon rack to the designated coordinates not far away, while Yunlong relied on his sniper rifle to block the surrounding mechas that tried to attack step by step. The two sides cooperated tacitly, but they could not provide strong support for the overall situation in front of them. Everyone was gritting their teeth and holding on, waiting for the rescue to come out of the tunnel. Another batch of ammunition was fired. Shirley stopped her action, turned around, took out her rifle, and began to attack the surroundings. The mecha's ammunition had been used up. Shirley wanted to go to the ship to replenish ammunition at this moment, but the surrounding mechas made it impossible for Shirley to get away. At this moment, Shirley had only one thought in her mind, that is, the captain should show up soon. Destroy these guys. In Shirley's mind, Captain Yang Mu could definitely handle this situation easily. And just when Shirley used up the first magazine and took out another magazine, behind her, the place that had been bombarded countless times suddenly splashed out countless gravel, which was directly sprayed into the sky, breaking away from the gravitational bondage of the asteroid. At the same time, there were waves of shaking under her feet. Shirley and Yunlong looked over at this time. The mechas that were fighting fiercely in the surroundings were also affected by the sudden grand scene at this time. The movements of their hands slowed down, and they all looked at the place where countless gravel was shut out. After a moment of silence, several mechas suddenly emerged from the tall rubble pillars. The dark green fuselage and the ferocious tiger head showed which side the mechas belonged to. The first mecha that came out directly found an ordinary standard mecha after rushing out. The strange electric drill weapon and chain sword in its hand attacked together, and actually penetrated the chest of the ordinary mecha and threw it to the ground. At the same time, there was a steady stream of mechas pouring out of the passage, one after another. The PAA mecha pilots who witnessed all this trembled unconsciously. A full 15 halberd-cutting mechas came out of it, and the blocked passage was completely blocked. The strong reinforcements belonging to Chen Wei and others arrived. Channel report, Yang Mu's team has arrived on the surface. Repeat, Yang Mu's team has arrived on the surface. Such a sentence sounded in the channels of all White Tiger mecha pilots, which instantly boosted people's hearts. Okay. The captain is out, beat these rubbish to death. Hearing the captain's voice, Shirley couldn't help but scream in the channel, and other soldiers who were struggling to hold on also cheered at this time, as if they had won the battle. In the command room of the mobile ship, Chen Wei, who heard the news, also stood up at the first time, looked at the captain next to him, and immediately stepped forward and shouted loudly into the channel, "Received, Yang Mu, immediately reinforce the mobile ship and drive away the surrounding enemy mechas." Received, Yang Mu immediately received the order, and at the same time manipulated the mecha to turn a direction, ordering all the mechas that rushed out to go in the direction of the mobile ship. These 15 mechas are the remaining mechas of the team led by Yang Mu. There were originally 16, but one mecha soldier was injured, and the tunnel could not be dug at that time, so they finally used the last resort. The injured mecha soldier was transferred to the cockpit of another teammate, and the halberd mecha was put into the rubble of the tunnel. The last section of the distance was opened by the explosion of the halberd chopping mecha, and the mechas of Yang Mu and others were also able to rush out of it. Corey was imitating Yang Mu's method, but the mobile ship could not provide assistance at this time, so the progress was very slow. But it didn't matter, Yang Mu and others had already come out, and a full 15 mechas joined the battle. And the balance of victory was repried. Yang Mu controlled the mecha to the direction of the mobile ship, and immediately saw the besieged mobile ship. There were already several places on the ship's body sparking, and it was obvious that the mobile ship was now under attack. The situation of the transport ship was much better, because there were no heavy weapons, and the opponent did not regard it as a target. For the time being, it just monitored the opponent and turned to attack the mobile ship with all its strength. Looking at the several gray-painted mechas surrounding the mobile ship, Yang Mu knew that they were all Galaxy Eagle mechas, and they were now attacking the mobile ship with all their strength. But now the opponent has obviously begun to divert the mechas, and obviously saw that the mecha team of Yang Mu and others had caught up. Several mechas immediately locked their targets on the mechas of Yang Mu and others, and rushed directly towards Yang Mu. Originally, Yang Mu was a little worried about the firepower attack of these mechas. After all, the innovative performance of the opponent's mechas was better than his own, but he found that the opponent had been attacking with the electromagnetic rifle in his hand. Looking at the motor ship next to him that was already riddled with holes, it was obvious that the opponent had consumed all the heavy firepower when attacking the motor ship. So now it is also a good thing for Yang Mu and others. In close combat, although the opponent's pricing still has an advantage, the number of mechas on his side can also play a certain role in containment. Yang Mu was the first to rush into the mecha group that came to block the opponent, and the chain sword in his hand swung violently, launching a fierce attack on the mecha in front of him. The subsequent halberd mechas also participated in the battle. With the firepower provided by the motor ship at this moment, Yang Mu's side was able to completely protect the motor ship. At this time, the motor ship also began to move the ship body, readjusting the direction of the electromagnetic gun muzzle at the bow of the ship, preparing to rescue Corey and others. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to dodge and maneuver among the Galaxy Eagle mechas, and launched a fierce attack on the Galaxy Eagle mechas he saw. Although Yang Mu's mecha performance was relatively poor, Yang Mu's melee ability could completely make up for the gap in equipment, and through his own attacks, he opened a gap in a very short time, allowing his teammates behind him to drive straight in and disrupt the opponent's layout. The battle situation changed again, and the opponent obviously noticed it. After Yang Mu kicked a Galaxy Eagle mecha away fiercely, a Galaxy Eagle mecha suddenly attacked from the side. Although Yang Mu defended in time, the side armor of the mecha was also scratched by the opponent. Yang Mu quickly retreated, drew an arc in the air, and finally faced the opponent head-on. It was also a gray-painted Galaxy Eagle mecha, but the difference was that the head of this mecha had a bright paint job, and the mecha soldiers inside were either officers or ace pilots. The opponent's long swords crossed and swung to both sides, and the tip of a long sword pointed directly at Yang Mu. Obviously, the opponent was provoking him to fight. Yang Mu narrowed his eyes slightly and waved the chain sword in his hand in response to the opponent's provocation. Chapter 307 Counterattack. The Galaxy Eagle mecha that suddenly stopped him and the crisp attack action it made clearly showed that the opponent was a master. Yang Mu also responded immediately, and at the same time asked the surrounding mechas to bypass and fully support the mobile ship. Seeing Yang Mu making the same response, the opponent also began to reposition his posture immediately. The attack between the two people was almost launched at the same time in the next moment, but neither side directly collided, but drew an arc, trying to find the side of the opponent to attack. Seeing that the opponent and he made the same action, Yang Mu couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. But Yang Mu did not stop his action, but continued to open the mecha engine to the maximum, rushing towards the opponent diagonally upward, with a drill of the dragon-slaying arm placed in the front position at this moment. The opponent obviously saw Yang Mu's action, and immediately gave up the maneuvering to find the best attack position, manipulated the mecha to rise, and then dived directly at an oblique angle, with the two long swords in his hands crossed, rushing straight at him with great power. The two sides clashed in the next moment, and Yang Mu's drill was replaced with a chain sword for blocking at the last moment, because at the moment before the two sides were about to clash, Yang Mu saw that the opponent's two long swords were tilted to one side, and the blocking effect of the dragon-slaying arm was not outstanding. If he rushed in directly, the opponent could directly cut off the arm of his mecha with a swing of the sword. The chain sword filled the position in time, and Yang Mu blocked the attack. At the same time, the entire mecha had crossed with the opponent. The opponent also turned the mecha around in the next moment. The two sides manipulated their weapons and hit each other again, sparks flying. Flexible clashes occurred again and again, and the two mechas were inseparable. At this time, Yang Mu also felt the power of this powerful mecha. Flexible mobility, more powerful power brought by the fuselage engine, and more precise strikes. This mecha is even better than the halberd-cutting mecha. In that mecha, Ian's face was ferocious at this moment. Ian thought that this sudden reinforcement would not be so powerful. Relying on the ultra-high performance of the Galaxy Eagle mech, he still held the balance of victory in his hands. When he found that this halberd mech was rampaging among the mechas, Ian rushed over at the first time and listed this mech as his target. However, after several confrontations with the opponent, Ian was shocked at this moment. The person in the mech in front of him had a very high level of mech fighting. Not to mention that the opponent used the same tactics as himself in the initial rounds. In several confrontations, he had been attacking with the extremely high controllability and flexibility of his mech, and he also seized the fact that the opponent's weapons were two slightly shorter weapons, and constantly exerted the performance of his long sword, trying to cause fatal damage to the opponent. But he did not succeed, not once, and all his attacks were blocked by the opponent. Whenever he seized the disadvantages of the opponent's weapons to launch an attack, the opponent would use frequent changes of moves to block his attacks, and at the same time, use the fast attack frequency to quickly counterattack. After such a series of rounds, Ian was surprised to find that he was entangled by the opponent and couldn't even make any breakthrough. At this moment, a large piece of rubble splashed into space suddenly erupted on the other side of the asteroid. Ian looked and realized that another exit was opened, and the opponent would have mechas to support again. The situation was not optimistic. Ian chose to evade temporarily, blocking Yang Mu's attack while issuing a retreat order to his teammates. Yang Mu, who was looking at the sudden explosion, was happy in his heart, and his goal had been achieved. He had been entangled with the guy in front of him, just to delay the opponent's attack, so that the opponent had no time to take care of other places, so that Corey and others could come out quickly. He did this at the time to prevent himself from showing too strong an attack power and making the opponent want to retreat. As a result, the whole situation changed again. But looking at the mechas of Corey and others who were about to come out, Yang Mu knew that the opportunity for his counterattack had arrived. Yang Mu admitted that the mecha in front of him was very powerful, and the pilot was also very good at using this mecha, and could fight very hard. But there was a premise, that is, this was relative to the standard mecha. And who is Yang Mu? Yang Mu was once the most elite special elite, and he had been driving an elite mecha made at no cost using the world's top technology, and received the most complete mecha combat training. Although this Galaxy Eagle mecha was very outstanding, Yang Mu was not afraid at all. He had been holding back his hands, and now it was time to exert his full strength. Seeing that the opponent seemed to be trying to dodge, Yang Mu was relentless. The dragon-slaying arm in his hand was turned on at full power at this time. The dragon-slaying arm, which was previously used as an auxiliary tool, would show its essence as a weapon of war at this time. Yang Mu's mecha ejected 2 hot energy batteries, the mecha was recharged, and then the heat dissipation holes of the entire mecha were directly exposed. The core engine of the halberd-slashing mecha was running at full power, and the engine flame changed from blue to red. The entire dark green mecha was like a fierce god at this moment. Ian looked at the situation in front of him and almost subconsciously tried to dodge, but when the mecha started to move to the side, the dark green mecha blocked it directly in front of him, and the opponent started to attack him with super strong force for the first time. The big and wide moves made Ian a little overwhelmed. The short weapon played its melee advantage at this time. The faster return to defense allowed it to speed up the frequency of attack and bring unexpected attacks to the opponent. Yang Mu's attack was not limited to this. When the weapon in his hand attacked fiercely, Yang Mu also manipulated the mecha to get close to the opponent. After an attack combination, he kicked out and swept towards the opponent's mecha. Ian reacted quickly. After taking Yang Mu's attack, he used his left arm to clamp Yang Mu's mecha calf, and at the same time raised the long knife in his hand high, as if he was going to chop it down in the next moment. But Yang Mu had already made a new move at this time. The upper body of the mecha stood up, the engine behind it sprayed violently, and the whole body directly pressed against the opponent. At the same time, the dragon-slaying arm on his left hand turned violently, and rushed towards the opponent's mecha arm aggressively. Ian looked at Yang Mu's attack, but immediately withdrew his hand and was about to distance himself, but was quickly approached by Yang Mu's action. Before he could make any moves, he was directly held and thrown out by Yang Mu's mecha. The 2 mechas rolled in space and finally crashed into the asteroid. During this time, Yang Mu's chainsword had already succeeded. The tip of the sword was inserted into the chest of the opponent's mecha from the side, and then hit it hard. No matter how powerful the mecha is, it will inevitably be damaged in such an attack, and Ian's Galaxy Eagle mecha is also the same. The left side of the mecha suddenly malfunctioned, and the movement of the mecha was affected. The speed of the 2 mechas falling was completely controlled by Yang Mu's mecha. Ian tried to break free, abandoning the long sword in his left hand, and instead used his mecha fist to hammer the opponent's chest armor, then ejected the gun on the mecha's arm and fired at close range. Sparks flashed in the gap between the 2 mechas, but it was only a flash, because Yang Mu had already held the opponent's mecha and smashed it hard on the hard surface of the asteroid. The huge impact force made Ian's mecha alarm sound, but Yang Mu quickly stood up by controlling the mecha. Before Ian stood up, he stepped hard with both feet, and at the same time, the chainsword in his right hand directly cut off the opponent's mecha's head. Ian, who struggled desperately, did not expect that his proud Galaxy Eagle mecha would be so vulnerable under the opponent's attack. Less than a minute had passed, but he was defeated instantly. The opponent's attack was not fierce before, and there were even some minor mistakes. But why did the opponent suddenly become so aggressive at this moment? He didn't even have the strength to parry. Ian was full of doubts. The next second, he immediately widened his eyes and desperately controlled the mecha arm to block in front of his chest. Because outside the chest armor of his mecha, a crazy rotating drill was pointing directly at his cockpit. Between the flashing lights, the powerful attack made Ian sweat. Ian, with a red face, used the mecha arm to block the drill from entering his cockpit. At this time, the voice of the officer in the control room sounded in the holographic helmet. "Ian, where are you? Come back with your team quickly, everything is ready, it's over." Ian squeezed out these 2 words from his mouth desperately. "What do you mean it's late?" "It's not late, the planetary engine is ready," the officer didn't hear clearly and still shouted loudly. Ian's teeth were creaking as he watched the drill bit contact the chest armor of his mecha in despair. "I said I'm done. Light up your engine. Now." Chapter 308 The asteroid being moved. "Just ignite your planetary engine. Now." Ian almost used up all his strength to shout this sentence, and on the other end of the communication channel, the officer who heard this sentence was stunned for a moment, and then saw the damaged state of Ian's mecha on the display screen beside him. The expression on his face suddenly became a little surprised, but he still raised his right hand and pressed the button fiercely the next moment. At the same time, the chair where the officer was sitting was deformed at this time, wrapping the officer's whole body in it, presenting an egg-shaped lifeboat, and quickly bounced towards the predetermined channel above. Yang Mu increased his strength again and watched the drill of the dragon-slaying arm pierce into the opponent's chest armor. The opponent was still relying on the power of the mecha to fight, but now it seems that this is useless. As early as just now, Yang Mu considered this, so the chainsword would attack the opponent in such a short time, causing the opponent's mecha to malfunction. But at this moment, a vibration suddenly came from far to near, and the vibration was very strong. Yang Mu could see the small gravel under his feet shaking. The vibration sound reached his ears through the mecha. Yang Mu looked up at this time and saw that in the distance, a huge dust column was continuously ejecting gravel into space, followed by orange-red flames. At the same time, some places around began to show signs of cracking, and the cracks were extending step by step to his side. The huge movement attracted everyone's attention, and at this time Yang Mu keenly discovered that the enemy's mechas that could still move began to move away from the asteroid at this time, and were accelerating to escape from this place. What happened in this asteroid? Yang Mu was full of questions, and at this time Yang Mu suddenly felt the power in his left hand empty, and hurriedly lowered his head, but saw that the galaxy eagle under his feet actually manipulated his arm to pull his dragon slaying arm and pull the entire drill position apart. Yang Mu tried again to pull out the dragon slaying arm, but was held tightly by the other party. Haha, give up, and be buried with me. Suddenly, a smug sneer came, and the mecha in front of him was actually communicating with him through a completely unencrypted channel. What are you going to do? Yang Mu asked loudly, but he was still met with a cold snort. This asteroid now has 8 jets and 2 self-rotating jets. It will start moving soon, and then the speed will get faster and faster. What on earth do you want to do? Yang Mu shook his arms vigorously and asked loudly again. It doesn't matter if I tell you, you can't stop it anyway. At this moment, Ian seemed to have given up struggling and was very satisfied with the current situation. We are going to build a cannonball that you can't blow up, and it's fast, and will send all of you to death. As he said this, Ian was already laughing crazily, showing that he was originally a madman. Yang Mu, who heard all this, felt cold all over his body. When he realized that the other party was hiding a bigger conspiracy, Yang Mu was already full of shock. Everyone, stay away from this asteroid immediately. Watch out for the opponent's jet fire column. Yang Mu immediately ordered all the mecha team members to stay away from this asteroid, and then he twitched his arm again, but was stuck by the opponent. Yang Mu stopped his action after hearing the opponent's taunting in the channel. Give up, I won't let you go from here. Ian seemed to think that Yang Mu had given up, and said tauntingly again. But in the next moment, Yang Mu's mecha suddenly moved. The whole mecha suddenly turned to one side, and then the upper and lower limbs on the right side deflected, facing Ian's mecha sideways. The engine on it started at full speed at this time, and the whole mecha rushed down quickly. At this time, Yang Mu used the shoulder armor on the Dragon Slayer arm to hit the opponent's mecha with a fierce collision. The huge force came, and Ian in the cockpit groaned suddenly, and the movement of his hands could not help but loosen. Yang Mu also took advantage of this opportunity to quickly stand up, and then the weapon in his hand immediately opened fire, emptying the magazine at the opponent's mecha's limbs. Seeing this sudden change, Ian was shocked and angry, and his veins bulged. You will be buried alone with this asteroid. Yang Mu put away his rifle, and slashed the opponent's mecha's belly where the energy battery was stored twice with a chainsword in his hand. Then, without saying a word, the mecha bent and ejected, and the engine roared and took the mecha away. I will kill you. Kill you. In the channel, Ian, who was embedded in the stone, roared loudly, and Yang Mu had already gone in the direction of the motor ship. At this moment, the motor ship had already quickly moved away with the transport ship, and the beams of light ejected by the asteroid had caused chaos in the entire area. In the channel, Chen Wei had been calling Yang Mu. Yang Mu, who had difficulty avoiding various obstacles, also responded immediately. Yang Mu, where are you now? Return to the ship immediately, Deputy Commander. Our mission is not over yet. They want to use this asteroid for something else. What? Chen Wei, who heard the news on the other side of the channel, was shocked. He originally thought that the other party had brought this upon themselves. They probably dug into the core of the Earth, causing the energy inside to explode, and then this situation occurred. But now Yang Mu said this, which made Chen Wei confused. He didn't understand what the other party could do with such an asteroid. This is what I got from them. I'll return to the ship now. Deputy Commander, get the ship away from here, Yang Mu added again, then drove the mecha through various obstacles and returned to the mobile ship. After getting off the mech, Yang Mu immediately went to the command room. A moment later, when Yang Mu arrived there, Chen Wei and others were already busy. Seeing Yang Mu coming, Chen Wei immediately ran over and looked at Yang Mu and said hurriedly, Yang Mu, What is going on? What did you find out? Yang Mu immediately took off the holographic helmet and led the other party to the holographic sand table quickly. He looked at the rotation direction of the asteroid scan map, and then opened the star field, but he still couldn't see the other party's target, frowning. Chen Wei and other officers stood by and looked at Yang Mu. Deputy Regiment, the information I just asked, they said they want us to be buried with them, and they want us to die, want us to be buried with them? Use this asteroid? Impossible, it won't have any effect on us at all, Chen Wei answered immediately, and Yang Mu's brows were frowned even deeper. Yes. Such a bulky asteroid, how could it have any effect on itself, let alone how to kill us? Yang Mu began to think that this was just the madness of the mech soldier when he was dying. But in the next second, a fleet staff officer shouted loudly. Look outside, look at that asteroid. Yang Mu turned his head quickly, and all the officers looked outside. Outside, the two opposite jet nozzles in the middle of the asteroid suddenly increased the jet force, and the flames and dust were ejected into the deeper space. At the same time, the tail of the asteroid was also flashing and ejecting regularly. And the more terrifying thing was still to come, that is, the asteroid began to twist its shape under the jet of these fire pillars, and the head of the asteroid that was originally parallel to the motor ship began to face downwards. The asteroid was actually turning slowly. Everyone in the command room looked at this scene with their mouths wide open. Chen Wei couldn't even believe that this thing could really be controlled by humans. Behind a meteorite 5 kilometers away from the asteroid, an egg-shaped cabin was hidden in it, and it was the officer inside. At this moment, countless commands were reflected in his pupils, and his fingers quickly moved on the screen in front of him. After a moment, a command popped up to set the course. The officer stopped, breathed a sigh of relief, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Chapter 309 Conspiracy. Seeing that the asteroid deviated from its orbit and headed in the direction below the plane, everyone in the command room was stunned, and Yang Mu was also surprised. Although this technology is feasible in theory, the knowledgeable Yang Mu has never seen it in actual operation. And now, this thing is really displayed in front of him. Where is that thing going? Chen Wei quickly turned his head and asked Yang Mu. Yang Mu could only shake his head helplessly, also with a face full of confusion. Everyone in the command room looked at each other, completely confused. Yang Mu walked back to the holographic sand table, looked at the asteroid that was changing its position, and then tried to pull the star map below, but found that after tens of thousands of kilometers, the star map behind was very blurry, and a boundary appeared at the same time. Yang Mu's heart moved, and he asked the people around him, where is it? After passing the star field, the staff in the command room looked at each other and said, that's the star field of OSA and Jiao Alliance, controlled areas of other countries? Yang Mu suddenly pondered, thinking that he had grasped something. At this time, there was a communication access in the command room. The big screen flashed for a moment, and the faces of Chu Zhuang and Chu Xiao appeared. It turned out that the captain of the mobile ship sent the news to the base as soon as he found this situation, and the base also quickly dealt with it. Chu Zhuang and Chu Xiao's faces appeared, and everyone looked over. What happened? Chu Zhuang asked seriously on the screen, and the captain explained everything carefully. When he learned that the asteroid had been transformed by PAA and used a big hand to push the entire asteroid to change its orbit, Chu Zhuang's face was also full of shock. At this moment, he realized that the other party was not just stealing mineral deposits, but just an excuse. Chu Zhuang quickly asked the direction of the asteroid. When he learned that the asteroid was sailing towards his jurisdiction, Chu Zhuang's face relaxed. There was plenty of time to stop it. At this time, Yang Mu suddenly turned around and spoke loudly to Chu Zhuang on the screen. Wait, this matter is not that simple. Yang Mu's loud words immediately attracted everyone. Chu Zhuang on the screen also looked over and asked Yang Mu to talk about his thoughts. Yang Mu walked quickly to the sand table, then shrunk the star field, and drew a bright red track, running through the star field under the jurisdiction of base number 6. Chu Zhuang, who saw all this, originally frowned, but suddenly seemed to understand something, and slammed the table hard. Those people want this asteroid to enter the jurisdiction of OSA. Everyone who heard the news was also in an uproar, knowing that the situation was serious. Yang Mu's expression at this moment was also very solemn. This is not other star fields, this is the Sonai star field, an area rich in minerals, and no one allows other countries to allow the other party to cross the border. Because crossing the border may mean that you are collecting the other party's minerals, which is equivalent to infringing on the other party's rights and interests, and then what will be ushered in will definitely be a storm of revenge. And now, this asteroid is like such a fuse. Once it enters the other party's jurisdiction, it can completely ignite the other party. An asteroid that was originally under the jurisdiction of PAJR, with obvious signs of artificial transformation, crossed into the jurisdiction of the other party at the same time. This is a naked provocation. If something else happens at this time, everything will become tense. It is impossible for PAJR to explain that all this is just a misunderstanding, or that PAA is behind it. Even if there is a combat video, both sides were wrestling in it at the time, and there were 2 times when the Zhanji mecha broke through the asteroid. PAA can make PAJR speechless with any excuse. As for the planetary drive technology, PAJR, as a leader in science and technology, can explain that it doesn't have it? This is impossible, and no one will believe it. It will only be regarded as an excuse for PAJR to provoke a war. A huge sense of crisis suddenly enveloped everyone. Chu Zhang made a prompt decision and asked the fleet to find a way to intercept it immediately. The reinforcements from the base will be sent as soon as possible. Commander Chu, it is estimated that it is difficult for the ship's weapons to destroy this asteroid, the captain of the motor ship said, and Chen Wei also stood up and asked, Commander Chu, does the base have any large weapons that can directly blow up this asteroid? Chen Wei's question was very sharp. The asteroid was very large, and it was impossible to intercept it with ship-borne weapons alone. At this time, if there were heavy weapons, it might be able to help solve this problem. Chu Zhang also lowered his head and thought, but after a moment, he shook his head and expressed regret. Super powerful special ammunition is directly controlled by the military. Only the commander-in-chief can decide to use and distribute it. We don't have such heavy weapons here. What if we apply to the military now? Chen Wei said again, but Chu Zhang shook his head. The application will definitely be granted, but there is not enough time. Even if we use the fastest ship, it will take at least a week to get here, and by then, this asteroid will have already flown out of our jurisdiction. Then can we make this asteroid turn? As long as it doesn't go to the star field under the jurisdiction of other countries, won't it be fine? A staff officer said loudly at this time, and everyone's eyes lit up, and they began to review this plan. But after a moment, everyone showed disappointment on their faces. This plan was simply not feasible. Not to mention how to change the course of the asteroid. The size of the asteroid could crush any asteroid that was towed by the starship to block it, and there would be no change in course. The opponent's engine obviously used the core of the entire asteroid as chemical fuel. The beam of light ejected was extremely hot. Any missile weapon that wanted to bombard the nozzle directly would be melted and exploded before reaching it, and would only increase the speed of the asteroid. Looking at the asteroid that was gradually accelerating in the distant starry sky, everyone's heart felt like being gnawed by ants. Chu Zhang was already angry and asked people to report the news immediately and request support. At this time, Yang Mu stood up and spoke loudly, Master, I have a solution. When the words rang out, everyone looked at Yang Mu again, with puzzled expressions on their faces. Some officers even looked at Yang Mu's unusually young face and felt a little impatient at the moment, thinking that the other party was just making trouble at this time. However, after seeing Chen Wei and other supervisors looking at him, they stopped talking and did not refute. Yang Mu, what do you have in mind? Chu Xiao asked first, and Chu Zhang also looked over. Yang Mu looked at the faces of the 2 people on the screen and slowly explained his ideas. Everyone fell into deep thought. After a moment, Chu Zhang nodded first and said, Okay, prepare to try this plan immediately. We will continue to provide support here. We must stop this asteroid before it passes through our jurisdiction. The screen went out, and everyone began to work intensively again. Yang Mu also turned around and left the command room and began to prepare for his work. But at this time, Yang Mu's face was still a little thoughtful. Yang Mu always felt that this matter was not so simple. Regardless of the consequences of this incident, Yang Mu could first understand that the biggest beneficiary of this incident was PAA. But PAA spent so much money to make such an asteroid weapon. Was it just to let PAJR and OSA compete with each other, and then reap the benefits? Even if it was, what was this benefit? Chapter 310 Yang Mu's Method. The 8th team reports that the titanium alloy chain hook has been locked, the spacecraft engine power is repaired, all mecha teams are in place. Voices of various actions being ready came from various channels one after another, and at this time, The command room was a busy scene. In the command room, Chen Wei and others were anxiously waiting for a fixed position of this asteroid. The idea proposed by Yang Mu was very strange, but it was really possible to achieve it. The method Yang Mu thought of was also to change the trajectory of the asteroid, but it was not to block the jet flame column at the tail of the asteroid as everyone thought, but to change the two jets located in the middle of the asteroid to balance the rotation. Turn it towards the distant star field close to the jurisdiction of Area 6, and then use the bombs brought by the military to blow up the entire asteroid, so that the entire crisis can be resolved. In order to change the direction of the jet, it is obviously impossible to fill it with material directly, and the method Yang Mu thought of was wonderful here. He thought of using the large tunnel excavation equipment brought by the transport ship. The device can directly drill a hole with a diameter of 20 meters when rotating. It is almost the same size as these jets. As long as this device is drilled obliquely towards the jet not far from the self-rotating jet, and finally uses the blasting device to separate the flame in the self-rotating jet to this oblique jet, while weakening the original jet, it can also make the gas in it eject from another jet, which may change the trajectory of the asteroid. This idea is easy to understand and seems easy to implement, but for this opening and digging angle, there are difficulties in actual operation. Everyone realized that they were not geologists or professional tunnel engineers. Such drilling and excavation precision requirements were very high, and the people on the scene could not do it at all. Fortunately, the base connected with the engineers of the military in time, and they were using supercomputers for calculations. Now, everyone can only wait. Seeing that everyone was ready, Chen Wei could only support his hands on the command platform, looking at the asteroid outside, and looking forward to sending back a message quickly. The base has replied. A moment later, the communicator shouted loudly. Chen Wei and others quickly turned their heads and looked at the big screen, and then saw the drilling position calculated by the computer. Send this drawing to the engineering core immediately, the captain shouted loudly. Order all mecha teams to start dragging equipment for landing, Chen Wei also said immediately. The mecha teams that had already been prepared quickly started to move. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to dispatch at the front. The equipment was connected to the front and back with chains. The 16 mechas assigned to his side were all the mechas that could be used by the team that followed him before. The other 3 were damaged and withdrew from the battle sequence. At the same time, on the other side of the transport ship, more than a dozen mechas also moved. It was the team led by Corey. They were dragging another similar mining equipment. Behind the cables of these mechas was a cylindrical steel monster with a length of 60 meters. It looked like an oversized earthworm and also had a very appropriate name, Earth Dragon number 12. This is the mining equipment, with a cross-sectional diameter of 15 meters. Before drilling, 8 layers of drill blades with a total length of 5 meters will extend from the periphery to drive the drilling tunnel. There are 2 such devices in total, occupying a quarter of the capacity of the transport ship, and they will drill at the same time at 2 rotating jet ports. Originally, these equipment needed to be transported directly to the asteroid by a transport ship and then unloaded. But now the asteroid is in a bad condition, and the relatively larger size of the transport ship makes it impossible for it to get close to the asteroid. So such a task naturally fell on the brothers mecha team. At this moment, watching the 8 mechas in front and behind pull the mining equipment out of the transport ship, Yang Mu's heart was also worried. It is already very risky for such a huge thing to be pulled and transported by a mecha. It also needs to avoid the surrounding gravel, resist the interference of the jet flow, and finally land steadily at the designated drilling site. All of this is a severe challenge. But this is what Yang Mu proposed, and it is the best way now. No matter how difficult it is, he must try it. The mechas in front increase the pulling force, and the mechas in the back spread out again, and pay attention to the asteroids that may appear in the surrounding area. Yang Mu gave the order, and then went forward as well, ready to help the team in front drag the equipment together. The mechas in the back, which were also fixed with steel cables, all spread out, like a parachute with only the ribs spread out behind the equipment. At the same time, some mechas kept firing missiles, smashing all the asteroids within 500 meters of Dylan number 12. 2 long teams marched in space, and the light of the surrounding stars reflected on them, like 2 long ribbons. The people in the command room became nervous again, and everyone carefully observed the progress of all this. At this time, the captain also ordered the mobile ship to guard the surrounding area and assist the mecha team to clear any asteroids in the surrounding area that might damage the equipment. Yang Yu turned the mecha engine to the maximum, and felt a huge pulling force coming from behind, and was also secretly shocked. It is not difficult to make this equipment move in this weightless environment, but it is very difficult to stabilize the trajectory of movement. It is precisely because of this that it is necessary to connect several mechas behind the equipment, and the two sides exert opposite forces to ensure that the equipment is always moving straight forward. Looking at the distance of the asteroid in front of him getting closer and closer, the far left is the rotation jet located in the middle of the asteroid, and Yang Mu issued an order again. The mecha in front slows down, the mecha in the back increases its strength, and pay attention to the equipment's descent speed. The equipment is now less than 5 kilometers away from the asteroid and has entered the gravitational range of the asteroid. Although the gravity of the asteroid is not large, it is a disturbing factor after all. If you don't pay attention, serious consequences may occur. Yang Mu said carefully, and at the same time, the mechas in front spread out, gathered above the equipment, and then pulled back in the opposite direction, so that the front end of the entire equipment began to tilt up. The mining equipment will cut diagonally from here to the predetermined location. In order to allow the equipment to land smoothly, this method can maximize the resistance and increase the impact area of landing, thereby protecting the equipment from damage. This was not something Yang Mu and the others had thought of, but a solution given by the engineering core. Now, almost everyone's channel was filled with the roar of the engineering corps commander, who is always loudly warning every mecha soldier to be careful in transporting the equipment. If the equipment worth tens of billions of yen Huron coins was damaged, everyone's mecha and all allowances would be used to offset the loss. Although the mecha soldiers probably didn't listen to such a threat, everyone was working hard to complete their respective tasks, trying their best to overdraw the service life of the engine so that the mining equipment could land smoothly. Seeing the mining equipment approaching the surface of the asteroid little by little, and at the same time within the expected speed, Yang Mu carefully watched everything and didn't even dare to breathe harder. This equipment must not be damaged. If it is damaged, it may be too late when the new equipment arrives. Perhaps this is the so-called last-ditch battle, and even the lives of the PAJR soldiers in the entire Sonai star field are implicitly bet on everyone here. Seeing that the equipment had reached the predetermined height from the surface, Yang Mu immediately shouted again, "Everyone, mechas up, full power." As soon as the voice fell, all the mechas rose vertically in unison, the flames of the engines also became extremely bright red, and the landing speed of the equipment suddenly stagnated. If this vacuum could transmit sound, they could even hear the creaking of the steel cables and the metallic sound of the equipment itself. The equipment landed little by little, and everyone held their breath. With a vibration, and the news of the successful landing coming from the channel a moment later, everyone was shocked and cheered loudly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Heavy News. Both mining equipment landed smoothly on the surface of the asteroid and arrived at the designated location smoothly. People on the ship and in the mecha cheered excitedly. After a while, everything calmed down, and the engineers also arrived at the mining equipment in a small landing capsule. The next thing was handed over to the engineering troops. Yang Mu ordered all mechas to land on the surface of the asteroid. All mechas moved the cables to the tail of the mining equipment, and no mecha was allowed to untie the cables. This was naturally agreed. These cables were special mining cables supplied to unmanned mining vehicles. They were long enough. The reason for not untying them was that the mining equipment had to be pulled out of them before drilling through. The last section of the distance will be directly blown through by the installed explosives and naval guns, and the mining equipment inside will need to be dragged out. Although this mining equipment can also self-destruct, it is a tens of billions of equipment after all. No one can make such a rich decision to blow it up. Yang Mu drove the mecha steadily and landed on the surface of the asteroid. Feeling the vibration from the ground, he was a little nervous. He was standing on a super-large jet engine, and what he was doing now might even explode the engine. This was almost fatal, and no one would face it so easily. As soon as he landed, Shirley's voice came from the channel belonging to the 13th team. "Huh? Such a big guy should be enough to drill through this asteroid, right, but I'm exhausted. Today was too thrilling. I'm going to eat a lot of delicious food when I return to the base," Shirley vowed, and Kunsang, as the guy who livened up the atmosphere, naturally came out to say a few words. Sister Shirley, eating too much will make you fat. Fat girls don't look good, what do you care? Girls shouldn't be so fierce. If you are so fierce, you won't be able to get married in the future, huh? You are talking about me, Uncle Kunt sang. What about you? I think you will be a bachelor for the rest of your life, right? Hey, you little girl, how can you talk to your elders like that? Listening to the quarrels of these two lively guys in the channel, Yang Mu also smiled helplessly. It is also a good thing to have two such lively players in the team, at least the whole team has cohesion. While observing the situation of the asteroid, Yang Mu confirmed the process of leaving later, and at this time the mining machine in the distance had already started. This thing is indeed shaped like an earthworm. After starting, it began to twist, and then in the next moment, the front section actually lifted slightly against the support frame, forming an oblique angle towards the surface of the asteroid, and then the shiny drill popped out of the head and pierced the surface of the asteroid with great force. With a rumbling vibration, Yang Mu watched the giant drill through the rock layer fiercely and easily, and was also extremely shocked by such human inventions. Since humans entered the interstellar age, the first thing they have set their sights on is the various mineral resources on countless planets. In order to successfully mine these resources, various countries are vigorously developing large-scale mining equipment, and in order to adapt to the environment in space, the equipment has been improved again and again. The equipment in front of him has represented the forefront benchmark of the human mining industry, but it cannot be called a new height, because in his previous life, Yang Mu had seen even larger equipment at an exhibition, but that equipment was used to mine planetary deposits. It is said that with the mining of that equipment, a medium-sized planet only needs 1 year to turn over all the rock layers with a depth of 20 kilometers on the surface and mine all useful metal deposits. Although the equipment in front of him is not so exaggerated, it is also very powerful. In just a moment, Yang Mu saw that the equipment had gone in almost 10 meters deep. The depth of this mining is less than 200 meters, and it will take about half an hour to complete. Then the equipment will be taken away and handed over to the ship to deal with the aftermath. 10 minutes later, the equipment has dug nearly 100 meters. 15 minutes later, the equipment paused once to replace the drill blade. 20 minutes later, the equipment still had the last distance to go, and Yang Mu had already ordered the surrounding mechas to start preheating the engine and confirm the exit route. But at this moment, a strong vibration suddenly hit, and several mechas that did not have time to pay attention to this situation were instantly shaken and could not stand steadily, and fell on the surface of the asteroid. At this time, a pile of crushed stone powder floated out of the big hole drilled by the mining equipment, making the hole very blurry. What's the situation? Yang Mu. What happened over there? Chen Wei on the ship noticed this scene at the first time, and immediately asked Yang Mu loudly. Yang Mu also immediately contacted the people in the mining equipment, and the other party sent a bad news. The tunnel that the Earth Dragon drilled collapsed behind, but the Earth Dragon was fine, but the equipment probably had no way to get out of it smoothly. Yang Mu was stunned when he heard the news. He didn't expect such a thing to happen at this time. The engineers inside explained that this might be because the previous jet nozzle was launched, which caused the rock layer to loosen. Now there is still a part of the distance that has not been opened. The engineers decided to continue the mission and drill back when they came out. After confirming that the other party could come out, Yang Mu was relieved and immediately reported the news. Seeing that the situation was good, the work continued, and everyone was still waiting to leave later. But after 10 minutes, another vibration sounded, and more smoke and dust came out of it. Yang Mu suddenly felt chilled and immediately asked about the situation again. And this time, the situation became a little scary. The tunnel collapsed again, and this time, the stone directly pressed on the ground dragon, and caused an important connecting component of the ground dragon to be damaged. After the emergency replacement inside, there was still no way to drive the ground dragon forward or backward. Hearing this news, Yang Mu said nothing, called a few powerful mechas, untied the cables on his body, and rushed directly into the tunnel. At the same time, Chen Wei and others were also anxious when they learned about this situation. The sudden change made everyone tremble. Yang Mu's mecha advanced only 100 meters, and saw that the front was blocked by rubble. Although it was only microgravity here, there were many stones and they were tightly squeezed together. It was impossible for the mecha to move them all at once. Yang Mu asked about the situation again, and the engineer in the Earth Dragon smiled with some regret. It was useless. The road was blocked and the machine was paralyzed. Even the lives of the 5 engineers could not be saved. Hearing the other party say this, Yang Mu immediately reported the situation and tried to find a way to keep the other party alive. If the machine can't move, it is impossible to change direction and drill out. Yang Mu hopes that they can walk out of various gaps by themselves, and the equipment will be left inside. But the fact is that it doesn't work. It's not that there are no gaps in the rubble, but that their hatch is blocked and can't be opened. Yang Mu then told them his plan, asking them to persist in it and wait for a few days of rescue, so that they can be rescued. But this plan didn't work either. This thing was originally fully automatic. This time, people were sent up just to prevent accidents from happening in the mission and to ensure that it went smoothly. So the 5 people only brought a little water and no food. But just to ensure that it went smoothly, such a thing happened. This is a dead end. This asteroid is obviously going to make these 5 people die here. Yang Mu's face was full of hideousness. He controlled the mecha and punched the stone in front of him hard, splashing countless sparks. A story without accidents is not a story, and I will not design a useless plot. Dear readers, please listen to the analysis in the next chapter. Chapter 312 Abnormal Yunlong. Everyone was shocked when they heard the shocking news, and then fell into silence again, and finally awakened by the frantic voice of the Engineering Corps commander. Yang Mu, scan the situation at the scene again and send it to us, Chen Wei said it the first time, and at the same time said to Corey on the other side in the channel, pull out your mining equipment from it immediately, stop digging, and bury the explosives immediately. The sudden situation shocked everyone, and the sudden life and death issue made everyone feel like they were hit hard. Yang Mu drove the mecha back a few steps, and then fired 2 missiles at the rubble in front of him. A huge explosion flashed, but the situation at the scene did not change much. On the contrary, the surrounding rock layers actually showed signs of falling off. Yang Mu was almost angry at this moment. Such casualties should not have happened, and he was responsible for all this. If he had not proposed this plan, there would be no such thing, and no one would be trapped inside. Yang Mu is not a hesitant person, but he is an officer who cares for his soldiers very much. This kind of sacrifice that can be avoided completely happened under his own induction, which is what Yang Mu least wants to see. Yang Mu's heart is inevitably not good. My hands holding the control handle loosened and tightened, tightened and loosened. I sent the scan data again. At this time, the chief of the Engineering Corps had come in the landing capsule. He wanted to use his own efforts to save the lives of his team members and this equipment worth tens of billions. Yang Mu was also unwilling to give up rescuing the people inside. He immediately called all the mechas outside down and asked everyone to start digging here, trying to move the surrounding stones and open this place again. There is not much time left for the people inside. The people inside do not have enough food and water. Although there is enough oxygen for the time being, once something happens in the tunnel inside again, it may make the situation even more critical. So for everyone, how to quickly rescue the people inside has become an imminent problem. When the chief of the Engineering Corps arrived, they immediately began to assess the situation, and then asked many mechas to try to pull apart several large rocks with cables. But after pulling apart, everyone found that the situation was more different than they had imagined. The rock layer above the tunnel seemed to be loose, and the thickness of the upper layer was also several dozen meters. Now, once the lower rock was pulled apart, the upper rock would loosen again, and then larger rocks would fall down. The method of clearing the tunnel was useless, and the chief again proposed to use careful mining equipment to drill through the surrounding area and then rescue the people inside. But when the machine started working, it was found that the rocks here were hard enough, and the mining machinery, which was originally only a secondary transport, was difficult to crush those large rocks. The excavation speed was extremely slow, and there was also the possibility of collapse. To rescue the trapped people, they had to drill down directly from above. The surface of the asteroid there was too close to the jet nozzle, and the equipment could not get close at all. Another method failed, and the chief angrily kicked the mecha next to him, his face twitching and ferocious. At this time, the situation changed again. Another shaking came, and this time the shaking came from deeper inside the tunnel. It seemed that the hollow tunnel was affected by the jet and collapsed again. The news came from inside that this time many stones hit the equipment again, and the whole equipment was trapped in it again. When these words were spoken, the people inside were already trembling. The people outside were also very sad and angry about this situation. Everyone was silent, and they were very sad about this scene. I don't know how long it took, the chief engineer suddenly sighed, and then walked to the rebel pile in a spacesuit very lonely, reaching out to touch it. Looking at the other party's actions, Yang Mu understood what decision the other party was going to make at this moment. This is really giving up on them. In the channel, the officer's depressed questioning of the 5 soldiers came, asking them if they had anything to confess and what their last wish was. There was silence in the channel for a moment, and several trembling voices slowly spoke out their last wishes. This is a heartbreaking moment. There are fathers, sons, soldiers who have just joined the army for 1 or 2 years, and veterans who have dedicated their lives. Some hope their families are healthy, some hope their girlfriends are not sad, some hope their families don't know the news so early, and some hope to see the sun set in their hometown again. The commander listened to them quietly, and then vowed to bring everyone's last wishes, and then said sorry softly. All the mechas soldiers present were silent, and tears flashed in the eyes of Shirley and others. After saying this, the commander resolutely turned around, stepped onto the aircraft, and left here. At the same time, the order to retreat came from the helmets of all mecha soldiers. Yang Mu took a deep breath, loudly ordered everyone to leave here, and then turned around and looked at this dark passage buried by rubble. Corey had already taken Gillen 11 away, just waiting for everyone to leave, and then detonated the tunnel. Yang Mu took the mecha back to the surface of the asteroid, counted the personnel, and prepared to leave here, but at this time he found that one mecha was missing, and the mecha driven by Yanlong was not here. Yang Mu immediately called the other party's name in the channel and searched for the other party's position on the screen. In the end, he found that the other party was still in the tunnel, and Yanlong did not come up with the troops. Without saying a word, Yang Mu and Kun San quickly drove the mecha down again. A moment later, they saw Yanlong, who was manipulating the mecha to frantically bombard and move the rebel in the tunnel in front of him. At this moment, Yanlong in the cockpit had a painful look on his face. He was almost extremely persistent in moving the stones in front of him, while muttering to himself. If the other party had not taken the initiative to close the channel, Yang Mu would have been able to hear the other party repeating a sentence. Can't I? Can't I? At this moment, Yanlong changed his original cold and unapproachable aura, and the whole person almost fell into a crazy state. Huzi in the life support box beside him also noticed Yanlong's different condition, and kept scratching the box and meowing loudly. Yang Mu and Kun San quickly walked over and still shouted loudly in the channel. But Yanlong was not moved at all and continued to move the stones in front of him. Yang Mu didn't know what happened to Yanlong. He only remembered that when all the mechas came down, the other party didn't seem to stop moving. Yanlong's unusual behavior made Yang Mu very confused, but he quickly stepped forward to stop the other party's actions, and at the same time used his authority to open the other party's channel and ordered him to leave immediately. But at this time, Yanlong's voice was transmitted to the channel of the two people, and Yang Mu and Kun Sang were both stunned. A story without accidents is not a story. Chapter 313, ending in heart-to-heart talk. You can't die here. Yanlong kept repeating this sentence in the channel, and he couldn't even hear the calls of Yang Mu and others. He just kept muttering and kept digging at the stones in the tunnel. Yang Mu saw that the other party didn't hear his words at all, so he immediately stepped forward, grabbed the other party's mecha, and shook it twice. The other party was struggling and shouting louder. Hearing the other party repeating this sentence, Yang Mu knew that this might be a past related to Yanlong, and under the urging of a certain atmosphere here, the other party remembered some painful things. Yang Mu couldn't even hold the other party, and then he and Kun Sang next to him worked together, and the two of them used the mecha to pull the other party's mecha away. But the more this happened, the more violent Yanlong's movements became. At this time, the other party's weapon rack was opened, and it seemed that he was going to attack Yang Mu and others, but the other party's weapons were obviously exhausted and could not threaten Yang Mu and others. Seeing that the other party's situation was very unstable, Yang Mu made a prompt decision to use his authority to invade the other party's control system again, and then directly shut down the entire mecha. The next moment, Yanlong's mecha stopped struggling, and only the hysterical voice of Yanlong was left in the channel. Yang Mu and Kun Sang immediately took the other party away from here. No matter what Yanlong had experienced, now he couldn't stay here any longer. A group of mechas quickly left the surface of the asteroid, and after the news was reported, Jiu Zhong and other officers expressed deep regret, and then issued an order to blast. Just after driving the mecha back to the mobile ship, Yang Mu saw a corner of the holographic helmet flashing orange light. Yang Mu quickly turned his head and saw a burst of sparks in the middle of the asteroid in the distance, and then countless gravel was thrown out. At the same time, the mobile ship's ship gun fired at another tunnel entrance. A moment later, 2 clear gravel tracks appeared in the starry sky, and then a fire dragon gushed out. The flames in the 2 original jets in the middle weakened a lot. The newly dug leak hole suddenly reduced the speed of the entire asteroid. At the same time, 2 tunnels with different angles began to change the trajectory of the entire asteroid. The tip of the asteroid began to tilt up, and the direction began to turn to this vast area under the jurisdiction of base number 6. Some people cheered, some admired, and some regretted. Seeing that his method worked, Yang Mu was also relieved. As the hatch slowly closed, the entire mobile ship would begin to evacuate, away from the asteroid, waiting for the arrival of the ship transporting large bombs. 10 days later, a patrol starship arrived. It had advanced nearly 200,000 kilometers in the starry sky. 10 kilometers away from the asteroid, the starship had a ground-penetrating fission bomb. The entire asteroid shattered in the rock strata, and finally fell apart, and then turned into countless fragments, no longer posing a threat. A crisis, after paying many costs, was finally resolved, and Yang Mu and others finally returned to the base. Shirley and others were standing outside a cabin at this moment, listening to the voices inside by the door. Kunsang was also listening attentively. Yang Mu had just returned from reporting the situation. He saw the actions of the 2 people, and then saw that this cabin belonged to Yunlong. He immediately understood and walked over. Seeing the captain coming, Shirley and Kunsang immediately gave up their seats. Yang Mu glanced at the 2 people and asked, "What are you doing here?" "Report to the captain. Uncle Richard went in to bring food to Xiaolong. We are waiting outside," Shirley said, and Kunsang smiled and nodded. Hearing that Richard went in to bring food to Yunlong, Yang Mu was also stunned. Since the last time Yunlong was pulled out of the asteroid tunnel, he looked dazed after coming out of the mecha. The psychologist concluded that it was just a temporary stress response, but Yunlong did not walk out of the cabin for several days in a row, and ate very little of the food sent over. Yang Mu looked at the closed cabin, his expression changed, and then he said to Shirley and the others, "Do what you should do." Shirley and Kunsang left with a smile, and Yang Mu opened the door of the cabin and walked in. In the small room, Yunlong was sitting on the bed with his back to the door, and Richard was sitting on the bowl next to him, with a plate of food next to him, and talking to Yunlong. Seeing Yang Mu coming in, Richard also looked over. Yang Mu motioned for him to speak. Richard turned his head to look at Yunlong, stood up and walked to Yang Mu's side. "This kid must have something in his heart that he can't get over. You and him may be more talkative." After saying this, Richard patted Yang Mu's shoulder and walked out. Yang Mu looked up at Yunlong, who was facing away from him, put his military cap on the shelf next to him, and then walked over slowly. Seeing the other person cross-legged and holding Huzi, Huzi was lying on his legs very obediently at this moment, and Yunlong was looking at the starry sky outside through the small window at this moment. Yang Mu pulled a chair over and sat beside the bed, looking at the starry sky outside like the other person, both in silence. "When I was a child, my father often told me that each star in the sky carries a person's soul, and they are all silently watching the living people continue to live in the sky." After a moment, Yang Mu suddenly said this, but Yunlong still did not speak, just sitting there. "I believed it without any doubt, and believed every word my father said," Yang Mu said to himself, but the expression on his face seemed a little lost. "But until one day, I heard a sentence from my mother. My mother said that my father had become such a star, shining brightly in the sky and looking at me, so I asked my mother, when will my father come back? I don't want my father to be a star, I want my father to come back and count the stars with me." My mother smiled and told me that as long as I grow up and count how many stars there are here, my father will come back. Yang Mu showed a smile of sudden realization on his face. "Then I believed it too, and kept counting the stars every day, but until I grew up, I still didn't count all the stars in the sky, and I also knew that the stars in the sky were just stars, not human souls." At this point, Yang Mu paused for a moment, but raised his head again and said, "I suddenly knew that my father couldn't come back, but I still believed that he had been watching me on a certain star, watching me work hard and live a wonderful life." Yang Mu said all this with some melancholy, but it seemed that he was looking for someone to tell his inner thoughts. Indeed, on every clear night after the age of 6, Yang Mu would look up at the sky, thinking that his father would suddenly come back and give him a big hug. But people will eventually grow up, and as the days go by, Yang Mu understands what his mother means, and what the white stone with his father's photo embedded in it is like every year when his mother takes him to. After going through so many things, Yang Mu suddenly sat down today, thinking about his past, and his eyes became a little wet. Yang Mu and Yanlong are only a few years apart in age, and as peers, it seems easier to communicate. After a moment, Yanlong seemed to have thought of something, and he actually lowered his head and wiped his eyes with his sleeves. Yang Mu saw all this, but he just silently handed over the tissue next to him, looked at the other person's red eyes, and said slowly, "Ziyalong, no matter what you have experienced in the past, at least you have to know that you are living with the hopes of others. A story without an accident is not a story." Chapter 314 Yanlong's Past. Yang Mu consoled him like this, but Yanlong sat down again after wiping his eyes, but he was silent again. Yang Mu was a little stunned, not understanding what was going on. "Captain, you are right, but I am different." After a moment, Yanlong finally spoke. But Yang Mu heard a different meaning. In fact, Yang Mu was quite emotional when he said these things, and after hearing Yanlong's words, Yang Mu immediately followed his topic. "Yes, everyone has different circumstances, but isn't life like this, growing up in pain, accepting pain, and then growing up?" As he said this, Yang Mu took out a compressed nutritional biscuit from the other party's food plate, put it in his mouth and took a bite. "The biscuit is delicious," Yang Mu said this, and handed the biscuit to Yanlong, who had his back to him. Yanlong seemed to be suddenly irritated, and suddenly turned around, looked up and glared at Yang Mu, with incomparable anger in his eyes. "Captain, you also lost your loved ones, so you should know what this kind of pain feels like." "Of course I know, then why do you seem to be so nonchalant, as if this is someone else's business?" Yanlong suddenly yelled, as if he was extremely angry that Yang Mu acted so nonchalant after telling him such a sad story. Yang Mu put down the compressed biscuits that were handed to his mouth, and his somewhat lost eyes became firm at this moment, looking straight into the other's eyes, his expression a little gloomy. "Then what do you want me to do? Cry bitterly every day? Lose and sad every day? Degenerate and decadent every day? This is not me, nor is it what my father wants me to be," Yang Mu retorted loudly, but Yanlong seemed to be stunned by Yang Mu's roar at this moment, choking on what he wanted to say, and then lowered his head in shame. Yang Mu suppressed his anger and looked at the immature boy in front of him. He understood that for a 17-year-old boy, his life experience was not so rich. There were many things that he still couldn't get around, let alone his own knot. Just like his own knot at the beginning, it was also tempered day by day in the army, and after experiencing countless things, he finally let go of everything. "Ziyalong, some things are over, as long as you do yourself well. That is the best explanation to your deceased relatives." Yang Mu sighed, changed his words again, and said to Yanlong in a gentle voice. Yanlong fell into silence again, until a moment later, he slowly spoke, but this time, Yanlong seemed to open his heart and take the initiative to tell Yang Mu about his past. Yanlong came from TC-221. Yang Mu knew that it was a low-level habitable planet with a dangerous environment, and Yanlong's life experience was very tragic, just like the protagonist in some biographical novels. Yanlong was found in a garbage dump. An old man who picked up scavengers picked him up on a rainy night and named him Yanlong. When Yanlong was a child, he grew up in a scavenger settlement not far from the garbage dump. He grew up eating at hundreds of homes and in a difficult environment, so everything in Yanlong's childhood was very difficult. Later, when he was old enough to go to school, Yanlong couldn't go to school because there was only one city on the planet, and the school in this city was only for the children of citizens. Yanlong was a scavenger's child and didn't have this qualification. As a scavenger, on that planet, they were equivalent to beggars. They were abandoned people. The grandfather who picked him up looked at this situation and tried his best to let Yanlong learn something, but every time he hit a wall and suffered humiliation. Yanlong cried more than once and asked his grandfather not to beg people in a low voice anymore, and he didn't want to learn anything. That time, his grandfather, who loved him the most, got angry for the first time and beat him severely. But in the end, Yanlong still couldn't go to school, and even the shops in the city were unwilling to recruit him as an apprentice. It happened that a big bearded man came among the scavengers at this time. He had been to school before and promised to teach all the children to read and write. So Yanlong's childhood was spent in such a painful and joyful environment. As Yunlong grew up, he began to follow his grandfather to the starship graveyard to pick up scavenger, taking great risks to dismantle some parts of the abandoned starship, and then sell them to save money. That's right, the grandfather and the grandfather are still working hard to save money after running for a living. Because Yunlong's grandfather has always had a dream, that is, to let Yunlong leave this planet and see the outside world. Yunlong also yearns for the situation outside, so Yunlong also works hard to study and help his grandfather save money little by little, looking forward to one day being able to take his grandfather to live on another planet. Then, an opportunity came, and the local garrison suddenly came to the scavenger camp to recruit soldiers, and Yunlong was selected. In the army, Yunlong was diligent and studious, worked hard to learn various combat skills, and tried his best to show himself, and then finally stood out from the crowd. But at that time, Yunlong was only 15 years old. This army was composed of teenagers collected from slums all over the planet, and it was not until later that they knew what their so-called youth army was used for. Their mission is to help each family fight against some illegal mines on the planet. In order to take his grandfather away from the planet as soon as possible, Yunlong began to do things he didn't want to do at that age. At that time, he learned to kill for the first time. After overcoming many hardships, Yunlong finally emerged step by step with his outstanding talent and was valued by the top leaders. But the next mission made Yunlong completely collapse, and he has been heartbroken ever since. In an inspection of private mining, Yunlong led his troops to fight fiercely with him, and the other party finally detonated the entire mine. At this time, Yunlong discovered a heartbreaking thing. In order to save more money, his grandfather worked in this mine, and this attack trapped a lot of miners underground. When Yunlong screamed and found his grandfather's location, he found that the gravel blocking the mine was extremely thick, and the entire mine was full of gas. As long as there was a sudden spark, everyone here would die immediately. Yunlong used almost all the methods he could think of, but before the mine was dug, the people inside could not hold on. The oxygen inside was gradually exhausted. Yunlong knelt in front of a pile of thick stones, calling his grandfather over and over again. But his grandfather was dying at this moment. Yunlong experienced despair that he had never experienced before at that moment. Grandpa used all his strength to leave Yunlong a word. Live well, and see the world for his grandfather. Yunlong was heartbroken, but he could only watch his grandfather die in the mine like that. Grandpa died, Yunlong lost the only relative in this world, and when packing up all the things, Yunlong learned that his grandfather was originally going to find a place on this planet to end himself, but he met Yunlong, who was crying hard on that rainy night. Yunlong, who knew all this, was almost sad to faint, and the whole person couldn't recover for a long time. It was precisely because of this that this knot fell in Yunlong's heart and could not be forgotten for a long time. This time, in this almost identical situation, especially when Yunlong heard the last wishes of the people inside, it aroused the deepest pain in Yunlong's heart at that moment, and this situation would occur. After saying this, Yunlong already had 2 lines of tears on his face. Huzi and his arm seemed to feel Yunlong's sadness and licked his fingers gently. After hearing all this, Yang Mu's expression on his face was shocked and sad. He lowered his head and listened to it quietly. Perhaps this can explain everything, including why Yunlong has such a personality. After a long silence, Yang Mu sighed deeply, and then said, "My condolences. I believe your grandfather also hopes that you can get out of it. You are still carrying a lot of responsibilities now, do you know?" Yang Mu said again. Yunlong seemed to be relieved after saying it this time and nodded. After comforting Yunlong a few more words, Yang Mu handed the food plate to him and said slowly, "Eat something, remember what I said, live a better life, so that you can live up to your grandfather and you." After saying this, Yang Mu picked up the hat beside him and put it on his head, then stood up. He thought of something and said again, "From now on, we are all your relatives." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Mu had already left the cabin, but Yunlong suddenly raised his head, tears could no longer be stopped, and he buried his face in his arms. Chapter 315, Foreseeable War. In the meeting room of the 13th team, the members of the mecha team and the chief of the maintenance team were sitting here, and Yang Mu was reporting the content of the meeting at the base command center. This was Yang Mu who called everyone together at night after he had a quarrel with Yunlong and held this team meeting. Of course, these are just preparatory plans. We may not necessarily go up. The situation is not so tense now, Yang Mu said this after roughly explaining the situation, and Kun Sang obviously disagreed with this statement. Why not nervous? The incident a few days ago was a naked provocation. That's right, why should we be afraid of them? Just beat them up, Shirley also said, and Yunlong sat aside without expressing his opinion. Captain, so is it the right time for us to come now? Richard heard the preparatory plan mentioned by Yang Mu and said with some worry. Yang Mu bowed his head and pondered. In fact, the first thing he discussed in the meeting held in the command room this morning was the asteroid crisis. Deputy Head Chen Wei reported the situation carefully, and Yang Mu, who proposed a plan to deal with the asteroid crisis, also made a report and mentioned some situations of the battle. Later, Jiu Zhang first severely criticized the improper handling of the whole incident by various departments, and then asked each Metro team to strengthen patrols at various resource points. After saying all this, I thought the meeting was over, but I didn't expect Jiu Zhang to suddenly tell everyone about another more important thing, and this thing directly explained why PAA would do such a thing at this time. It turned out that in a relatively remote place in the Sonai star field, a large group of super-large asteroids appeared, and there, a strange situation appeared. That is, all the asteroids except for a layer of rock protection on the surface, are all pure various precious metals, and the reserves are amazing, and can even easily exceed the total reserves of all the reserves in the area divided by any country. This situation was first known by OSA, but it was accidentally known by PAJR, and then this matter was known to everyone. This place was not divided among the countries, so it was also put on the agenda. Everyone argued at the negotiation table day after day, but no useful results were obtained. The parties even argued more and more fiercely, and finally they were arguing with red faces. But this was only on the surface. Behind the scenes, the countries were secretly working hard, and frictions continued to occur. Even more detection equipment began to wantonly invade the star domain jurisdictions of various countries in the Sonai star domain for exploration. This situation made the situation in the whole place very unclear. Among them, the relationship between OSA and PAJR was the worst. The other party believed that it was PAJR that made them lose the opportunity to monopolize this area. The situation intensified and the friction continued to escalate, but they all restrained themselves. No one wanted to tear their faces first. PAA wanted to watch the other parties get into chaos first, so it planned such an action and prepared to reap the benefits. And Yang Mu only then realized that the benefit of the fishermen was this rich resource star domain. But in the final analysis, such means are still very risky, because although there are visible benefits for PAA when two big countries fight, once PAJR and OSA see that all this is a conspiracy of PAA, they may join hands and kick PAA out of this group competing for interests. Qiu Zhang also further explained why PAA would risk using this frame-up strategy. The reason is that around that star field, several mining companies controlled by OSA and other countries have begun to mine. This has touched the interests of everyone. After a long time of negotiations, some people can't wait. According to reliable intelligence, PAA and other countries have begun to mobilize heavy troops to rush there, showing the momentum of fighting to the death. In the meantime, Yang Mu also heard a piece of news about PAJR. In fact, the replacement of the Mecha Regiment this time was also a cover. PAJR transferred the Mecha regiments with rich combat experience from nearly 100 outposts in the star field. In fact, they did not return them to their original star fields. Instead, they gathered them all together, transformed all the mechas, and strengthened their training, ready to directly send all the Mecha regiments to that battlefield in case of any emergency. This is no less than an oversized battle. This is the first time that humans have invested so many troops in a battle since the First Galactic War. Yang Mu had heard about this battle in his previous life, but he was still studying at that time. He only knew that this war was tragic and all the participating countries paid a painful price. In the end, they reached a reconciliation after the meeting of the heads of state of each country and redistributed the resources of that place. For these cosmic powers, the most interesting thing for them is to compete for resources. War, in fact, is to compete for various resources. Alpha Vitae is the name of that place. Yang Mu was not very clear about this matter in his previous life, but now, Yang Mu feels that he is likely to experience this war in person. That place where the forces of various countries compete is also a place where countries show their muscles. Everyone will spare no effort to show their strength, so it is foreseeable that this war will be tragic. Under this background, in fact, All outposts have strengthened the level of vigilance, and this asteroid incident has undoubtedly sounded the alarm for everyone. Now, Zhujiang must be prepared for danger in times of peace and make some deployments in advance. These deployments can be said to be to strengthen the defense of the base, or to be prepared for the war that may be called. This is a very bloody news, but Yang Mu must implement it seriously. It can't be said that we came at the wrong time. It should be said that it is precisely because our mech regiment has very good strength that we can come here, Yang Mu answered Richard's question. But this is just a possible situation. What we need to do now is to preserve our entire base and strengthen daily patrol tasks. Yang Mu actually knew that the war would definitely start, but Yang Mu felt that he and others might not be involved in this battle. Instead of worrying about it, it is better to work hard and exercise your abilities to take precautions, so that if the worst situation really occurs, you will be able to fight. Yang Mu comforted everyone in this way, and at the same time re-emphasized the future training tasks in patrol areas, urged everyone seriously, and then dissolved the meeting. But undoubtedly, when this news came out, everyone's heart was shrouded in a haze. And the relatively cheerful atmosphere before gradually became a little serious. Everyone was making every effort to improve their various skills. And this matter made Yang Mu worried, and finally in a transfer order, it became the fact that Yang Mu least wanted to see. Chapter 316 Chu Zhao's Instructions. Time passed unknowingly until January of the 225th year of the galaxy calendar. The tense situation that Yang Mu had expected did happen. Frictions began to appear in the Alpha Viti star field half a month ago, and then the fleets of various countries began to gather there. There was even news that a local battle had broken out. However, there was still peace in the Beacon Tower No. 6 base. Yang Mu had been leading the entire team in daily training, and everyone spent every day in the most fulfilling environment. But this time did not last too long. After a daily patrol mission, he saw a large starship suddenly appear outside the base, and a combat order popped up on his personal terminal. Yang Mu knew that the first and most tragic war in the new century had finally arrived. Just after getting off the mecha, Yang Mu opened the new order that appeared on his personal terminal. With just a glance, Yang Mu scanned the steel stamp of the Sonne Star Field War Zone headquarters at the bottom, and Yang Mu immediately had the answer in his heart. Sure enough, in this order, the White Tiger Mecha Regiment was ordered to dispatch 10 teams to the Alpha Viti star field to participate in the battle. The teams would board the planetary attack ship Red and go there within a week. Seeing Yang Mu standing in the warehouse and looking at something on his personal terminal, several team members around him also came over, and Yang Mu immediately sent the order to them. After reading it, everyone had a solemn look on their faces. Everyone understood that this most undesirable result had come. Although everyone as a soldier was mentally prepared, when things really happened, they could not help but feel a little uneasy. "Captain, what should we do?" Richard asked immediately. Yang Mu put away his personal terminal and said, "Immediately organize all the equipment and order the maintenance team to take important replacement parts to the dock to prepare for boarding." Originally, Yang Mu and others were stationed here. In addition to the need to install various space combat equipment on each mecha, there were not many extra things. However, this time they were going to a large-scale interstellar war. Although the army would naturally have logistical support at that time, their maintenance team would carry important equipment and be able to replace it as soon as possible when a major problem occurred. This could greatly reduce the casualties of the mecha soldiers in the battle. After Yang Mu's order was arranged, everyone took action immediately, and Yang Mu quickly changed his combat uniform and walked into the passage. Just now, Chu Zhao also sent a notice to him that he wanted to see him. As the white hatch opened, Yang Mu stepped into the base command room, and at this time, there was a busy scene inside. It seemed that because of this order, major deployment changes had to be made here. Just after walking a few steps in, Yang Mu immediately saw Chu Zhao standing next to the holographic battle map, and in front of Chu Zhao, a dense asteroid belt appeared. Yang Mu walked forward, and the other party also saw Yang Mu, and immediately turned around and glanced at Yang Mu. "Yang Mu, you should have received the military order, right?" Chu Zhao asked. Obviously, he also knew the order to mobilize the 13th team to set off. It might even be issued by him. Yang Mu nodded, and Chu Zhao also hummed. But he was looking at the asteroid belt projected star map in front of him, with a solemn expression on his face. "Do you know why I asked you to come here this time?" Yang Mu did not see the captains of other teams in the command room, so Chu Zhao called Yang Mu alone, obviously for another purpose, but Yang Mu still shook his head. Chu Zio spoke again. You should understand that this mission is very difficult. The regiment sent out the best mecha teams, but I will not go with you. You will be led by the leader of the Rift Mecha Regiment of Base Number 5. He will lead you to form a temporary mecha regiment and go to the battlefield. At this point, Chu Zio explained why he did not go. First of all, the superiors ordered the Rift Mecha Regiment to lead this team that needed to be temporarily reorganized. At the same time, this base needed defense. This time, all the elite mecha teams in the entire base were mobilized, and the remaining mecha teams were responsible for the defense of the base. Chu Zio had a lot to do. Captain, what do you mean? Listening to the captain talking to him about these things and emphasizing the seriousness of this war from time to time, Yang Mu noticed something else. Chu Zio directly told Yang Mu about the matter before he could speak. That's right. I want you to be the representative of these 10 teams and handle related affairs. Because this is a combat mission, the deputy commander will not participate, so the task of connecting the 10 teams falls on you and Corey, Chu Zio said directly, but his tone suddenly changed. Yang Mu, you also understand that the core combat power of the Mecha Regiment has been damaged since the incident on Zinking 4 stars, especially several excellent captains and soldiers retired and transferred. Chu Zio said this, but he looked at Yang Mu with a burning gaze. And Yang Mu, your performance has always been outstanding. It can even be said that you are now a trump card in my hand in the entire regiment. Chu Zio's words are not unreasonable. Although he has been running the White Tiger Mecha Regiment for many years and knows the importance of high-end combat power to the Mecha Regiment, and it is also the first time he has seen such a talented person. This young man has shown his extraordinary combat talent from the beginning and has helped the entire Mecha Regiment resolve many crises. This is a rare talent, but Chu Zio also knows that this boy is not a common man. He has a broader space for development. Chu Zio is not selfish, nor is he a sinister person. This time he chose to let Yang Mu participate in this operation because the Mecha team that went out on this expedition was completely designated by him, which means that he has the opportunity to let him stay in the Mecha Regiment and not face the possible fatal danger. But Chu Zio also understands that this will only harm this young man. Instead of letting him thrive in his small Mecha Regiment, it is better to let him go out to experience something else and make a name for himself on a bigger stage. Yang Mu, although you are led by the Rift Mecha Regiment in this operation, I still hope that you can take care of other Mecha teams. You know, they are all good fighters. I can't bear to see them being pushed onto the battlefield and die here. When Chu Zio said this, his original murderous temperament changed, and there was already a trace of pain on his face. Yang Mu listened quietly to the words of his captain, and seeing the captain's somewhat heavy expression, he also understood why the captain would tell him these things. A true officer, though he may say that kindness is not good for the army, will never fail to care for his soldiers, just like the commander of the engineering corps. Chu Zio spent a lot of effort to train the entire first-class White Tiger Mecha Regiment. Although its mission is to protect the territory of the motherland, sacrifice their lives and shed their blood, but at this last moment, no commander wants to see the soldiers he sent out return with their bodies wrapped in horsehide. Such words are full of contradictions, but they truly reflect the most real thoughts of a commander who cares for his soldiers at this moment. Yang Mu let out a deep breath, and then nodded heavily. Captain, don't worry, I will do my best. This expedition must be dangerous, and Yang Mu didn't want to just watch his comrades die on the battlefield. If he could help, Yang Mu would definitely lend a hand. Seeing Yang Mu nod in response, Chu Zio hid his sadness again at this moment, and then waved to Yang Mu. I believe you can do what you say. Go down and come back alive. After saying this, Chu Zio turned his head and looked at the holographic map in front of him again. But 2 hours later, Yang Mu led the entire team and the other 9 teams to board the starship docked at the dock. Standing by the porthole of the starship, looking at the blue dome on the asteroid not far away, Yang Mu's eyes gradually became deep. At the call of his teammates, Yang Mu put on his military cap again and turned away. Yesterday, my computer went on strike, so I took some time to rest. Please forgive me, haha cap. Chapter 317 Docking. The red planetary starship was currently traveling in a star field at a speed of 1% of the speed of light. The starship did not start the curvature navigation because it still needed to go to base number 7 to load other mecha teams. There were now hundreds of mechas gathered on this starship. The entire huge rear cabin that was specially vacated was filled with mechas. It was now completely bustling with people, and every team was checking their own mechas. Yang Mu had just confirmed the situation of his team with the officers of the starship, and then he saw that his personal terminal had received another signal, which was the communication channel of the Rift Mecha Regiment. Thinking of this Mecha Regiment, Yang Mu naturally thought of UNQ, and he didn't know if the other party had participated in this call-up. Yang Mu had just thought about this when Kun Sang came over, seemingly because of something. "Captain, there is an officer who claims to be from the Rift Mecha Regiment over there, and he wants you to go over and confirm the handover." As he said, the Rift Mecha Regiment over there was also preparing to temporarily incorporate the team sent by the White Tiger Mecha Regiment at the first time. In this call-up operation, 10 Mecha teams were selected from each Mecha Regiment stationed at each base, and some Mecha Regiment leaders were selected to lead them. Hearing that the other commander wanted to see him, Yang Mu did not hesitate and walked directly over there. Passing through a group of mechas that were still being sorted, Yang Mu stepped into a cabin at the front of the starship. In a small office, Yang Mu saw several people in military uniforms. In the middle of the entire office, a bald man looked particularly outstanding, and he had the rank of his Hongsing school. It seemed that he was the leader of this Mecha Regiment. When the other party saw the officer with the armband of the White Tiger Regiment coming here, the bald man also raised his head at the first time, and then said, "Is the person in charge of your team not here yet?" In the entire office, Yang Mu knew one person, that is, Long K, the captain of UNQ's team. At this moment, the other party was standing aside. Hearing the inquiry of the commander, Yang Mu grinned and saluted. "Report, I am the leader of the various teams selected from the White Tiger Mecha Regiment." Yang Mu, hearing that the newcomer was actually the leader of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment, but looking at his age, all the officers looked at each other in surprise. The bald middle school star also had a look of surprise in his eyes. Only Long K next to him looked at Yang Mu's face with a look of understanding. "Hello, I am the leader of the Rift Mecha Regiment, Mo Shan." The bald officer was stunned for a moment, immediately returned a military salute, and then said to Yang Mu. Yang Mu nodded, and Mo Shan also called Yang Mu over. "Let me first report the general situation on your side." Report to the commander. The White Tiger Mech Regiment has dispatched a total of 10 mech squads in this call-up, namely the 1st to 9th squads, and the 13th squad, with a total of 50 mech soldiers, 200 logistics squads, and 55 halberd-slashing mechas, all in the best condition. Please give instructions. After hearing Yang Mu's report, Mo Shan saw that the young man in front of him was familiar with him, and nodded with satisfaction. But immediately raised his eyebrows and asked again. "Why not the 1st to 10th squads? What is the situation of the 13th squad?" Mo Shan obviously noticed this situation and asked immediately. Yang Mu grinned, looked at him, and slowly said, "I am the captain of the 13th squad." Hearing this, Mo Shan was even more surprised, and several officers in the field also showed surprised expressions. Because according to the organization of each mecha squad, the 1st squad is generally the strongest, and the captain of the 1st squad also manages other mecha squads in the regiment during special combat periods. But this Hong Xing-Wei of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment in front of him is not only so young, but also not the captain of the 1st squad, but he can represent all 10 squads, which inevitably makes everyone a little surprised. "Captain, how old are you this year?" an officer asked immediately. Yang Mu answered immediately, and when he heard that the other party was not yet 20 years old, several officers took a breath. At this time, the officer who asked the question showed a suspicious look on his face, and he immediately questioned, "Since you are not even 20 years old, how can you be so capable and get such great power and an official position?" This officer was obviously deliberately looking for trouble, and even took the initiative to ignore the fact that the other party had the same rank as himself, and actually questioned in the tone of an elder. Yang Mu was indifferent. Although he didn't expect to meet such a person here, maybe this person was sent out by the Rift Mecha Regiment to show off his power. However, according to Yang Mu's character, he would not be a coward in such a matter. "Then may I ask this commander?" "Officer, you are so old, but you still have the same rank as me. Shouldn't you feel ashamed?" Yang Mu immediately retorted, emphasizing the word commander. "You?" The other party was immediately furious as if a rabbit's tail was stepped on, and glared at Yang Mu fiercely. At this time, Mo Shan stood up and immediately scolded the officers on his side. "Okay. We are all comrades who went to war together. What tricks are you trying to do?" The officers lowered their heads immediately after being told by their commander, but the expression on their faces was obviously still a little indignant, and they stood behind. Mo Shan laughed and said to Yang Mu, "Comrade Yang Mu, please forgive me for making fun of you. We are all from Shanyang Star in the New Kin Star region. I am a little aggressive in my words. Please forgive me." Yang Mu didn't care about these things. He said a few polite words, and Mo Shan turned the topic to the main topic. "Comrade Yang Mu, you should know about the handover of the team, right?" Mo Shan said this, obviously reminding the other party to let the 10 teams of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment be under the jurisdiction of the other party. Of course, our team leader has already said before leaving that we will unconditionally obey the arrangements of our superiors. Hearing Yang Mu say this, Mo Shan also nodded. With the addition of these 10 teams of the other party, he can also be regarded as putting together an elite mecha regiment, so that he can have a better performance in the subsequent battles, and even get some good military merits. Then let's encourage each other. Mo Shan said this after confirming some things with Yang Mu again. And it was obvious that he wanted to end this conversation. Yang Mu did not hesitate, and when he walked out of the door, he suddenly turned around, glanced at the officer in the cabin with some deep meaning, and then said, "Sir, although Shanyang Star has many talents, they must be disciplined. After all, we are a first-class mecha regiment, and there is no order without rules." After saying this, Yang Mu left directly, and at this time the officer inside suddenly widened his eyes, his face full of anger, and was about to come out to ask Yang Mu for an explanation, but was stopped by other officers. Seeing Yang Mu leave like this, Mo Shan smiled helplessly, and at this time Long K also stood up and told some things about Yang Mu in detail. These are all what Long K heard from Yuan Q. Of course, there is some shared intelligence. When everyone heard that this young man graduated from the military academy on Yanhong Star and became the captain of the team in just a few months, especially the asteroid incident that all bases were talking about not long ago was the solution that the other party came up with, everyone was a little stunned, and the angry officer also gritted his teeth. Yang Mu was already walking towards his cabin, but at a fork in the road, he suddenly saw the slender and familiar figure. The other party obviously saw Yang Mu and immediately turned around and looked at Yang Mu. "We meet again, Yang Mu." Yang Mu also smiled. "Yes, and this time, we can fight side by side again." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Before the War. The person Yang Mu met was Yu Wenchu. Yu Wenchu saw Yang Mu's team members in the rear cabin of the starship, and then he knew that Yang Mu was also involved in this operation, so he asked Yang Mu where he was going, and the two met halfway. "Have you just come to report the situation to our leader?" Yu Wenchu and Yang Mu were walking in the passage together. Yu Wenchu asked lightly, obviously knowing that Yang Mu had just come to report the situation. Yang Mu nodded, and then said, "This mission is different." Yu Wenchu also nodded, but suddenly turned his head to look at Yang Mu. Although his expression was still indifferent, he said, "Yang Mu, don't rush too far forward in this mission, it's too dangerous." Yu Wenchu said this, glanced around again, and said in a low voice, "You are a student from Kunlo College, don't lose yourself here in vain." Listening to Yu Wenchu's words, Yang Mu looked up at him, and then his expression was a little serious. Yu Wenchu immediately realized why Yang Mu had such an expression, and immediately explained, "Don't worry, I haven't told anyone that you are a student of Kunlo College, this is just a friend's words, because I think you have a more important mission." Yu Wenchu said this, and the expression on his face relaxed a little, which seemed to be from the heart. Yang Mu did not respond to the other party immediately, but continued to walk forward. "I know." After a moment, Yang Mu said it. Yu Wenchu said this obviously because he cared about Yang Mu, and Yang Mu was willing to accept this kindness, but sometimes, many things can't be said to be what they are. Yang Mu has taken up the burden again. This is the feeling of being trusted and relied on. Before boarding the ship, the captain asked him to take care of the team members as much as possible. Although the team was led by Mo Shan, Yang Mu must be considered a layer of guarantee. This is a recognition of a person, but it is also a layer of burden, which means that he shoulders the fate of many people. Yang Mu has felt this feeling for many years, and he always reminds himself that his words and deeds may determine the fate of many people. Although he has not reached that level yet, He also has such a role. More and more people are willing to obey Yang Mu's orders. On such a battlefield, it is like handing their lives to Yang Mu. Yang Mu understands why he came to the army. One is to let his passion not slowly dissipate in a calm environment, but to let himself understand the burden on his shoulders. This is the most important thing, and it is what Yang Mu has been doing. In addition to this, or coincidence, it is the thing that Cuz told him in his last dream. The Zerg mother nest may have appeared here now, in the Sone star field. Although Yang Mu originally planned to find a way to come here within a few years, now this matter has hit him directly. Less than half a year after he learned about this matter, he has already ushered in the opportunity. Whether it is the war or the matter of the Zerg mother nest, these are burdens that are pressed on Yang Mu's shoulders, telling Yang Mu all the time that there is no way out. Although Yu Wenchu hopes that Yang Mu can protect himself more, for Yang Mu, when the moment really comes, he will still go. Yu Wenchu, you should be more careful too. Nothing is absolute on the battlefield. Yang Mu and Yu Wenchu moved forward silently. Yang Mu said this slowly. Yu Wenchu looked over and nodded. The two people just talked briefly for a few words. After they left, less than a day later, everyone was required to enter the hibernation chamber. The starship is ready to start the curvature flight and go directly to the frontline base of the Alpha Viti star field. After the starship sailed in the starry sky for 36 hours, it finally arrived at PAJR's frontier space fortress in the Alpha Viti star field, the Blackthorn. At the same time, another starship of the same model arrived, carrying another 7 squads drawn from the mecha regiments of various frontier outpost bases, forming 7 mecha regiments here, a huge team of more than 700 mechas. And now, the 7 regiment leaders are gathering in a small room somewhere in this space fortress for a meeting, and the faces of the 7 people are full of deep thoughts. When they just arrived at this space fortress, Moshan and others received an order from above, requiring 7 mecha regiments to form a logistics defense force to protect the safety of many ships and supplies heading to the front line. This space fortress is more than 10,000 kilometers away from the front line, and there are countless asteroids densely distributed in it. Ships can only use ordinary speeds, and the forward speed is slow. At the same time, the threat of asteroids is serious. The team of Moshan and others was tasked with such a task, which was to clear the asteroids that might endanger the ships and the fixed channel, and to carefully survey the surrounding environment to prevent the enemy mecha team's raid or mine-laying activities. This order seemed much better than sending soldiers to the front line to fight, but there were less than 800 mechas guarding the surrounding star field with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers. The area each team was responsible for was also very vast, and it was difficult to reinforce after facing danger, so such a task was also extremely difficult. Now several officers were here to discuss how to allocate tasks so that the entire escort operation could go smoothly while ensuring the safety of the mecha team as much as possible. I still have the same suggestion, to divide each team into areas, patrol regularly, and the surrounding teams should always pay attention to reinforcements. A thin-faced officer said so, but someone immediately refuted it. No, not to mention that this will disrupt the organization that has just been established. The team distribution is too scattered, and the defense of some key areas will not be strict. Then add a few more teams to those places. I don't think it is necessary to be so scattered. Our mission is to ensure that there will be no problems with the waterway. So why don't we place all the troops in the waterway and the surrounding area within 100 kilometers, so that there will be no problems with the fleet and material transportation? Not appropriate. In this way, you only achieve a line of defense, which is too loose on the whole surface. If the enemy breaks in from other areas without any direction immediately after you leave, and then does something on the waterway behind us, it will increase our work. The captain has been arguing endlessly, and everyone has their own ideas. Moshan, who is watching all this, frowned deeply, and interrupted everyone's conversation after a while. Colleagues, how about listening to me? As soon as Moshan spoke, these people stopped and looked over. Moshan actually had quite a bit of prestige among these officers. The reason was that the Rift Mech Regiment led by Moshan was one of the top 3 mech regiments in the New Kin Star region, and it also had some reputation in the circle of first-class mech regiments. What's more, the other side was now sending out elite troops, and the other 10 mech squads merged into this mech regiment were from the White Tiger Mech Regiment in the New Song Star region. The White Tiger Mech Regiment was also an outstanding first-class mech regiment, especially the other side's leader Chu Zio, who was known as the eye-dangling tiger at the beginning. It was said that he once relied on a mech to fight against an elite mech squad of another country and made great military achievements. Both mech regiments were very outstanding, and now the elites of the two sides were combined together, which showed that this mech regiment was already comparable to some carrier-based mech regiments of interstellar motherships. Strength is respected, and the bigger the fist, the more power to speak, so now Moshan can be said to be the most authoritative person here. Seeing that everyone had stopped arguing, Moshan immediately spoke up. Everyone, why not listen to my opinion first? My idea is that we should take all aspects into consideration and focus on defense at the same time. When Moshan said this, everyone was confused. An officer immediately stood up and said, Old Mo, isn't your meaning similar to what we just said? Moshan shook his head, then stretched out his hand to open the holographic star map in front of him, and pointed to the channel on it and said, I mean to focus on defending the channel, using about 3 mecha regiments. And to take all aspects into consideration, we should spread out the remaining 4 mecha regiments, with this channel as the center line, and spread out in a cone from the space fortress. The closer to the end of the channel, the larger our reconnaissance area will be. As he said this, Moshan had already drawn a rough shape on the star map with his hand, and when everyone heard his words, their eyes lit up and their expressions changed a little. Everyone saw the difference of this plan. First of all, it was no longer a comprehensive reconnaissance of the entire star field with a diameter of more than 10,000 kilometers. At the same time, it also took into account the safety of the waterway and the surrounding area. Moreover, because the risk factor was greater near the battlefield, the reconnaissance direction there was wider, which could ensure the smooth arrival of the fleet. An officer immediately stood up and said, I agree with Lao Mo's plan. Moshan also looked up at the people around him. The people around him looked at each other and saw the expressions of approval. They nodded one by one. Moshan also smiled slightly. Since all colleagues agree, let's do it. The higher-ups asked us to set off immediately. Let's prepare now. The specific patrol plan will be planned by the supercomputer. Everyone only needs to make their respective mecha regiments ready to set off at any time. The group said goodbye one after another and went back to each mecha regiment to arrange tasks. Moshan walked at the back, watching everyone leave one by one, but he looked down at the star map in front of him and muttered to himself, I'm afraid this mission is not that simple. The Space Fortress Mecha Storage Layer. This is the 3rd layer of the 8-layer mecha storage area of this black spherical space fortress, and now it is full of mechas of various mecha regiments unloaded from the starship. There are many maintenance personnel around who are busy repairing to ensure that all mechas are in the best condition. Yang Mu is standing in front of his team's mecha, holding a small piece of space military rations in his hand and watching the maintenance team in front of him inspecting the mecha. The other team members have gone to the fortress cafeteria to eat, but Yang Mu chose to stay here. Other teams of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment passed by here, greeted Yang Mu, and left one after another. In this huge hangar, under the cold light above, it makes it a little cold, but the bustling scene does make it all dissipate a lot. Yang Mu was still chewing his rations slowly, when a hand came over and handed him a cup of hot water. Yang Mu looked up and saw that it was Yu Chu, then he took the cup and drank 2 sips. There's hot food in the cafeteria, why don't you go and have a bite? Yu Chu said expressionlessly. Yang Mu shrugged and said something random, I have no appetite, so I'll just watch them prepare the mecha. In fact, this was Yang Mu's habit again, he was used to staying hungry before the battle. But because it had been 36 hours since he woke up from the hibernation chamber, his body needed some energy, so Yang Mu ate some compressed rations to fill his stomach. Of course, there was no need to say much about this, and after saying this, Yang Mu continued to look at the work not far away. Yu Chu dragged an empty ammunition box over, sat next to Yang Mu, drank a few sips of hot water in the cup, and then also looked at the situation in front of him. What's on the left arm of your halberd chopping mecha? Isn't it the original standard equipment? In just a moment, Yu Chu saw the dragon slang arm that was being debugged. The last time the two met at base number 6, because the White Tiger Mecha Regiment had just arrived and the Mecha was also being debugged, the dragon slang arm was not installed at that time, so Yu Chu naturally didn't see this thing at that time. Yang Mu pointed and said, a new equipment. If you need it in the future, you can report it and ask the higher-ups to make it. What is it used for? Powerful armor breaking, and can also be used for blunt impact. The attack distance is short, but the damage effect is obvious. Have you equipped it a long time ago? Yu Wenchu nodded and continued to ask. Yang Mu shook his head. No, it's only been a few months. I equipped it before coming to the Sonne Star region. Hearing Yang Mu's explanation, Yu Wenchu hummed, but never spoke again. The two fell into a moment of silence. After a moment, Yu Wenchu said lightly, Yang Mu, when do you think we will be in the battle? Yang Mu had just eaten the last bit of compressed dry food. When he heard the other party's words, he turned his head to look at the other party, then turned his head again to look ahead and finished the water in the cup. Tomorrow at the latest. Tomorrow. Yu Wenqiu was obviously very surprised by Yang Mu's judgment. Yang Mu nodded. In fact, this was not groundless. According to his original memory, Yang Mu knew that the war had almost started. Before entering the space fortress, looking at the densely packed starships outside that were being prepared, Yang Mu knew that those starships were all going to the battlefield, so it was obvious that he would not be in the battle for too long. Yang Mu reached out and patted Yu Wenqiu on the shoulder. Be careful, if this mecha has a problem in space, it will almost be a dead end. Yang Mu said this to Yu Wenqiu, and at this time Yu Wenqiu was stunned for a moment, with a look of understanding on his face, but suddenly reached out and took out a piece of paper from his pocket. Looking at this thing in his hand that is rarely used by the army, Yang Mu looked at him in confusion. Yu Wenqiu explained dryly, this is a suicide note I wrote. I also recorded a video with my personal terminal. If I die, I can also leave a memory for my father. Yu Wenqiu changed his previous cold attitude and showed the sadness and hesitation that should never appear at this moment. Obviously, he already knew what kind of danger this battle might face, and made the worst plan. Yang Mu rubbed the paper in his hand for a few times, and was about to say something, but a prompt sound suddenly sounded in the personal terminal. Yang Mu raised his hand and saw that it was an attack order. Yu Wenqiu also received the order at the same time. The two stood up immediately. Yu Wenqiu was about to return to his mecha parking place, but Yang Mu held him back. Take this. Yang Mu handed the paper back to the other party. I'm not in the mood to send you anything. You should just support your father yourself. After saying this, Yang Mu turned around and walked quickly towards his mecha, and at the same time notified other members on his personal terminal to arrive immediately. Yu Wenqiu was left standing behind, holding the paper in a daze for a moment, then holding the paper tightly, and left. Chapter 319 Boarding the Ship. The alarm of the mecha storage layer sounded. Yang Mu had quickly changed his combat equipment and boarded the mecha cockpit, and at this time, others also hurried over, and boarded their own mecha cockpits without hesitation. This huge scene was simply shocking to watch from the side. When all the mecha soldiers boarded the mecha, the storage layer cabin began to evacuate the air, and all maintenance personnel, including the mecha, evaded or put on portable oxygen helmets, gradually guiding many mechas to go out. Yang Mu's holographic helmet has already shown the situation in front of him. The tall gray launch platform door is slowly opening, revealing the starry deep space outside. Yang Mu put his hand into the control card slot, and after confirming the situation with the people around him, he took the lead in starting, and the mecha stepped out. Outside, there are already many mecha transport platforms approaching, ready to meet all the outpost mechas ready to attack. This transport platform, which is only 100 square meters in size, is called the Bull Mecha Transport Platform. It has powerful horsepower and has always been used as a relay platform for mecha teams to launch operations in space or land on large starships. However, in the mouths of the soldiers, this thing has a more appropriate name, the Wild Donkey, which is extremely difficult to drive, and will give up once it encounters the damage at the end. Yang Mu led the team up, and the platform quickly began to turn its direction and headed towards a large transport ship in the distance. Some of the surrounding outpost mechas were directly transported to the distant deep space by the transport platform. Seeing this situation, Yang Mu guessed that the other party should have received a specific combat order. The order just received by his mecha was just to quickly put on armor and prepare for combat. Now looking at these teams heading in different directions, Yang Mu knew that the battle arrangement might have begun. The next moment, Yang Mu's holographic helmet also displayed a new order, a specific combat order directly issued by the Fortress supercomputer system. Yang Mu's team will board the ship directly, advance with the fleet, disembark in the second half of the channel, perform reconnaissance missions around the channel, and drive away or kill any enemy mechas that may approach the interstellar fleet. At the same time, when all these mechas started to move around the space fortress, A huge fleet of more than 200 ships had begun to move slowly. There were interstellar motherships, various attack ships, frigates, cruisers, and transport ships. All ships had made their final preparations in the space fortress. Now the fleet was pointing directly at the battlefield more than 10,000 kilometers away. The 7 outpost mecha regiments all began to execute their orders, and the entire fleet also began to move. The 16 engine jets at the tail of the huge 10 million-ton Yanhuan-class interstellar mothership in the middle of the fleet burst out blue ripples, and the entire starship began to move forward slowly. The engines used by military-grade starships are no longer the chemical fuel engines of ancient times. All engines use radiation engine technology, which drives the starship through microwave radiation. This technology can greatly reduce the weight of fuel carried by starships for interstellar navigation, and it is cleaner, and at the same time, it also provides a stronger guarantee for the safety of starships in battle. Looking at the huge fleet above them moving slowly forward, especially the huge interstellar mothership that blocked out the sun, the mecha warriors standing in the transport ship couldn't help but exclaim. Although everyone has seen starships, this interstellar mothership, as the crystallization of PAJR's most advanced technology, is the crystallization of human technology that everyone can't help but admire. Looking at this interstellar mothership, Yang Yu's face also showed a trace of nostalgia. His own Blue River ship, also a Yandy-class interstellar mothership, was built only 2 years before the outbreak of the Zerg War. If it hadn't been used as bait in that battle, it should have taken such a huge fleet and galloped across the universe. However, Yang Yu only pondered for a moment and then retracted his sight, because in the holographic helmet, Mo Shan had already convened a meeting with the captains of each mecha team. The supercomputer has issued fixed tasks to each team, which is something that Mo Shan, as the head of the mecha regiment, could not easily change. And this meeting is more of a reminder from Mo Shan to all the captains. Remind everyone to be alert here. For any suspicious target, you can attack directly without probing. At the same time, each mecha team is required to actively ask for help when in danger, and the surrounding teams should ask for help quickly. Because the reconnaissance mission performed by the Rift Mecha Regiment and the White Tiger Mecha Regiment is at the outermost part of the last section of the channel, which is relatively close to the battlefield. From an arc surface, the span of the reconnaissance escort area this time is very large. If you encounter danger, it will be very difficult for the surrounding large forces to support you. Everyone who knows this nodded seriously. Mo Shan didn't say much, just asked everyone to keep in touch, and then turned off the communication video. Although Mo Shan said it so simply, at this moment, Mo Shan was also wearing a mecha on a transport ship. As a leader, he also had to participate in this war in person, and even at some moments, he needed to lead by example. The interstellar fleet slowly sailed on this route to the battlefield. The transport ships that Yang Yu and other mecha regiments were riding on were advancing below the entire fleet. Yang Yu could see some mecha teams getting off the transport ships from time to time, and then riding the bull transport platform to the surrounding starry sky. Obviously, the mission area of these mecha teams is here, to ensure the safety of the entire fleet's route and any threats that may appear in the distance. Although the entire fleet also has such a defense force, in order to preserve its strength to the maximum extent, these reconnaissance forces will only start to conduct reconnaissance when they are still 1,000 kilometers away from the battlefield, and will not be too far away from the fleet, just to ensure that there will be no safety problems in the fleet, and the hard work of clearing the route and fixing the threat will be done by the outpost mecha regiment. Although this is somewhat aggrieved by the outpost mechas, everyone understands that this is to prepare for the victory of this great war. Although there are complaints, no one opposes such an arrangement. Yang Yu confirmed his team's mission with the team members again, urged them to check their equipment again, and then contacted other White Tiger teams to learn about their mission area and prepare to provide reinforcements at any time. The voyage in deep space is silent, and the speed of the starship is not fast, but it was only 10 hours later that Yang Yu's team received the order to attack. Set off immediately. Yang Yu quickly cheered up and ordered the team members to board the transport platform. As one side of the transport ship opened, 5 mechas quickly detached from it and headed to the deep space on the side under Kun Seng's operation. The mission of Yang Yu's team has begun, and here, only 1 or 2,000 kilometers away from the battlefield, is already a dangerous area. Everyone took a deep breath and looked carefully at every place around. In such a deep space, no support can arrive in an instant. If something goes wrong or you are seriously injured, there is almost only one way to die. Chapter 320 Encounters and Obstacles. White Tiger Squadron 5 reports that 2 high-speed meteorites have been cleared in the mission area, and no enemy mechas have been found. A second patrol is underway. Edgethorn Squadron 10 reports that 2 floating stealth mines have been found and will be detonated on the spot. Fisher Squadron 8 reports. In the main channel, reports from various mecha squads were received. The patrols in the surrounding areas have been advancing layer by layer, and some situations have gradually begun to emerge. Floating mines and high-speed asteroids have been cleared one after another. There are even teams that have found traces of enemy mecha squads, but because the enemy's position is far away, several mecha squads have not been able to keep the enemy. But now the atmosphere in the entire channel is becoming more and more serious. The reason is that the reconnaissance mecha regiments belonging to the starships have begun to pass by the surrounding areas to help and assist in the investigation. This also shows that the entire fleet has approached the battlefield very closely, and the situation in the surrounding areas will only become more and more severe. Kun Sang, don't go too far in your reconnaissance. Always report your position, Yang Mu spoke in the channel. The Kun Sang mecha, which was reflected in the distance, was still reconnaissance forward, while Yang Mu and others were cleaning up an asteroid at this time, and Yang Long was on guard. Captain, I can't stand it anymore. We are here to fight, not to do hard labor. After solving the problem of the asteroid, Yang Mu ordered the entire team to move forward and continue to check the surrounding situation. At this time, Shirley suddenly said in the channel angrily, obviously very dissatisfied with doing such a thing. However, although Shirley complained like this, the entire mecha still followed the team honestly, showing the quality of the mecha soldiers of the first-class mecha regiment. Hearing this, Yang Mu also looked back and pursed his lips. What's wrong? It's just the beginning. Are you going to give up? Yang Mu said lightly, but Shirley, who was sitting in the cockpit, shook her head gently, but her face was still a little indignant. Captain, that's not what I meant. We came here with so much hardship. Why do we have to do these things? We can also fight on the front line, and we are not much worse than them. It was inevitable for Shirley to have such emotions, because she had always been longing for this level of war. She was a complete war maniac and had always been talking about being able to go to the front line to kill the enemy, but now, her mecha team was assigned to such a place and do such a hard job. As a mecha soldier of the first-class mecha regiment, Shirley would definitely complain a few words. Richard in the team laughed and comforted Shirley, and Yang Mu also smiled slightly and said a few words to comfort her. This situation was not something she could control, but although she was doing this hard job, she was still participating in this war. So Yang Mu also comforted her in this way. At this time, Kun Sang's roar suddenly came from the channel, and the sound was so loud that it directly covered the voices of other people in the team channel. 20 degrees east by south, 30 degrees negative angle, enemy mechas are found, the number is unknown. This sentence suddenly appeared, everyone was stunned for a moment. And then their eyes suddenly burst into brilliance, they found enemy mechas, in such a place. Yang Mu quickly asked, send the picture back, and make the coordinates into data. We will come immediately. After saying this, Yang Mu led the entire team to quickly support Kun Sang. At the same time, a picture and an accurate coordinate were also sent. Yang Mu saw the 2 mechas in the photo. Judging from their appearance, they should be OSA's Nightblade mechas. This should be a pure reconnaissance team. The enemy's current location is about 800 kilometers away from the fleet, but from the pictures taken by Kun Sang, it can be seen that the enemy is still moving forward carefully. Yang Mu made a prompt decision and quickly covered the communication channel to send out this message, pictures and positioning coordinates. Mo Shan received this information at the first time and ordered Yang Mu's entire mecha team to quickly move forward to retain the one who read the fee, and immediately dispatched other teams for reinforcement. After receiving this order, Yang Mu immediately ordered the team members, and the entire team quickly moved forward, constantly moving forward while trying to conceal their whereabouts. Yunlong and Shirley, stay back and follow my orders to launch the attack. Understood, Captain. I finally got the chance. I'll let you vent your anger, Shirley said happily. It seems that she finally found an outlet to vent, and she was very excited at the moment. The team quickly moved forward, and when they were less than 10 kilometers away from the opponent seemed to have discovered something and stopped moving forward. Yang Mu quickly ordered the team to stop moving forward to prevent the opponent from discovering him and others. The team carefully paid attention to the opponent's situation. The opponent seemed to have not noticed anything after pausing for a moment, and then continued to move forward. Yang Mu, who was watching all this, breathed a sigh of relief for a short time and ordered everyone not to move. But in the next moment, the opponent's movement suddenly stopped, and then Yang Mu saw that the opponent quickly turned the fuselage and was about to start evacuating. Seeing this sudden situation, Yang Mu thought that his team had exposed their position, and then he found out that the other side had noticed a mecha team that was rushing here to reinforce Yang Mu and others. Seeing this situation, Yang Mu shouted that it was not good. If he did not attack at this moment, he would probably not be able to keep the other side. Yang Mu quickly issued an order, and the entire team no longer hid and rushed out from the asteroid belt to keep the other side here. Shirley's heat-seeking missiles were the first to be dispatched. Dozens of missiles went towards the other side in the shortest time. After being slightly damaged by some asteroids along the way, the rest went straight to the target. However, the Nightblade mecha was worthy of being an excellent assassination and reconnaissance mecha. It evaded very flexibly, and with the help of guided missiles, it avoided this attack and quickly retreated to the rear. At this time, Kunsang, who was closest to the other side, rushed out directly and entangled one of the other side's mechas, forcing the other side to stop and fight with him. The mechas of Yang Mu and others also approached quickly. After Yunlong found that the opponent was out of the range of the sniper rifle, he immediately put away his gun and sprinted forward with all his strength. His speed even exceeded Yang Mu, just to occupy the advantageous position as quickly as possible. At this moment, the 13th team was like a tiger out of the cage, with shining fangs and waving claws, vowing to tear the prey into pieces in an instant. But the opponent did not want to fight, but just wanted to quickly get out of the battle. The mecha entangled by Kunsang also quickly got out of it under the desperate fighting style, and the whole team was retreating quickly. Yang Mu naturally chased after him, but at this moment, the forecast radar suddenly sent a signal. Yang Mu glanced at it, but he was immediately sweating. The mecha twisted its body forcibly, and at the same time loudly ordered the people around him to pay attention. Because at this moment, an invisible floating mine that appeared from nowhere suddenly started up and approached Yang Mu rapidly. It was seen that this mine was about to stick to Yang Mu's mecha. The explosion suddenly lit up, and the surrounding mechas quickly stopped. However, after the explosion, Yang Mu's mecha was not damaged, because Richard arrived in front of Yang Mu in time and blocked the attack with his shield. Chapter 321 Stealth Ship. This is a magnetic stealth floating mine, with a splash killing range of about 50 meters. Yang Mu is not sure about the specific model, but seeing the almost damaged state of Richard's mecha defense shield prompted in his mecha, Yang Mu was shocked. The surrounding team mechas immediately stopped direct tracking and began to project butterfly-shaped baits to the surrounding area. After a moment, several more explosions lit up. Sure enough, the opponent deployed some floating mines in this area, but it is unknown how many of these things there are. Yang Mu immediately asked Richard in front of him about the situation. Richard said that the arm of the mecha can still be used, but the defense performance of the mecha has been greatly reduced, but it can still meet the basic combat. Hearing this news, Yang Mu was relieved and ordered the team to bypass this area from below and continue tracking. At this time, a piece of floating mine fragments floated around. Yang Mu reached out and scooped a piece into his hand. Looking at the twisted shell, Yang Mu raised his eyes and observed the surroundings. The opponent did not use laser mines or infrared mines, but an advanced magnetic mine that can sense specific metal components. The reason why he came to this conclusion was because this kind of magnetic mine, in this kind of asteroids full of various metal minerals, the other party was able to accurately find the mecha target of himself and others. Obviously, there was something like a metal detection instrument in it to assist the attack. But looking at the placement of these mines, in such a remote star field, several of them were placed so casually. The purpose should not be to set an ambush, but to block the entanglement of Yang Mu and others in an emergency. But how could such an advanced floating mine be equipped by an ordinary squad? The other party's mission should not be ordinary. Yang Mu couldn't get a specific answer. At this time, the mecha had passed through the previous minefield. The figure of the other party's mecha could no longer be seen. Now everyone was just heading in a general direction. The mecha team moved forward again for a distance. At this time, several laser beams suddenly passed in front of them, flashing in this strange and cold star field. Obviously, someone had encountered it. Yang Mu quickly asked about the situation in the channel, and a team's request for help came from the main channel. They intercepted the team marked by Yang Mu in front, but there were two teams there, and there was also a stealth ship. And it was an extremely advanced stealth ship. The situation had changed again, and the content described were like a boulder that set off waves. When this news came, Mo Shan spoke again in the channel, asking the team to report the specific situation immediately, and the surrounding teams to reinforce immediately, and make sure to keep all the opponents. If there were only one or two teams, this matter would not be so difficult to deal with, but when they heard that there was a stealth ship over there, this kind of starship that is smaller and more flexible than a motor ship and can be invisible, has a powerful attack power that the former cannot match. This thing called an interstellar submarine has always been a killer weapon of various countries. It is generally equipped with some weapons with super attack power. There have even been records that such a stealth ship suddenly appeared and attacked with all its strength. An interstellar mothership did not have time to open its maximum defense and was directly penetrated by the opponent's weapons, allowing the enemy to win the greatest victory at the lowest cost. And now, this kind of stealth ship actually appeared here, and the opponent's target is likely to be the mothership of their own interstellar fleet. This can also explain why this Nightblade team can be equipped with such sophisticated weapons. Because this kind of stealth mecha with excellent performance has another great use, which is to be used as the carrier-based mobile force of this stealth ship. After figuring all this out, Yang Mu felt like a thorn in his back. He immediately ordered the team to move forward at full speed, and at the same time quickly joined the surrounding teams, preparing to outflank the opponent from all directions. And now over there, the first team to arrive has been fighting with the opponent, and the opponent seems to know that their actions have been exposed, and now they just want to escape. The team of Yang Mu, who was closest, quickly arrived, turned over a few rolling asteroids, and everyone immediately saw the situation in front of them clearly. In the area of the asteroid in front of him, there were dozens of mechas fighting fiercely. In one of them, a slender streamlined spaceship was attacking continuously under the cover of several large asteroids. At the same time, the Nightblade mechas around it were closely guarding and still looking for an opportunity to leave the battlefield. Yang Mu rushed into it with his team without saying a word. The reinforcements also reduced the pressure on his team. The opponent noticed the change at this time and quickly increased its firepower. But after being defeated once, how could Yang Mu let the opponent go again? The halberd mechas gathered, and the mecha with the white tiger head painted on the dark green shoulder armor rushed in directly. Yang Mu swung the chain sword in his hand, directly picking up the opponent's scimitar, and then violently knocked the opponent away. As if to vent a long accumulated anger, Yang Mu's team almost exerted 100% of their combat power at this time, and countless hot firepower splashed wildly at the enemy to attack indiscriminately. The other side obviously saw the different situation here, and the firepower of the entire fleet was concentrated around, hoping to open a gap. However, the number of asteroids around was too dense, which had a great impact on the attack, but for defense, it was a piece of cake. The fleet's attack was not very effective in the end, and other mecha teams came one after another around. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to flexibly avoid the opponent's attack, and the chain sword fiercely inserted into one of the opponent's mechas, and then took advantage of the opponent's force to move forward again, and the mecha quickly approached the stealth ship in the fastest time. However, Yang Mu's fierce attack obviously attracted the attention of some people. Immediately, two Nightblade mechas rushed over and flanked Yang Mu's mecha. Yang Mu's team cooperated tacitly. Yunlong in the distance quickly opened fire, and at the same time, Richard's mecha rushed forward and quickly broke through the opponent's blockade. At this moment, Yang Mu was less than 3 kilometers away from the stealth ship in front of him. He could even clearly see the colorful light on the smooth surface. At the same time, two shadows suddenly passed over his head. Yang Mu raised his head and saw two black mechas suddenly passing by. They seemed to be ship-borne Viper mechas. However, there was no such mecha in the Sentry mecha regiment. The radar showed the other side as his own mecha. Yang Mu quickly realized that it was the fleet's reconnaissance mecha. Obviously, the fleet had received the news of the stealth ship and sent reinforcements to this place at the first time. It seemed that they were also aware of the huge threat that the stealth ship might bring. The Viper mecha passed by quickly, faster than the surrounding mechas, and did not care about the targets along the way. It actually used the most brutal way to directly crash through and went directly to the farthest stealth ship. Their purpose was more direct, that is, to eliminate this biggest danger at the fastest speed. But their powerful action was obviously noticed by the other side. The next moment, Yang Mu saw that the shuttle-like streamlined stealth ship opened multiple slots on the upper layer, and needle-like objects were pushed out one by one. Seeing that, Yang Mu's eyes widened immediately, and he suddenly controlled the mecha to stop, and at the same time loudly ordered the team's mecha to evade immediately. Yang Mu also shouted the same thing in the general channel, but the battle on the scene was too intense, and almost no one around could hear what Yang Mu said in the channel clearly. The two reconnaissance mechas also had no intention of slowing down, and even released several missiles to attack. But Yang Mu knew what the stealth ship pushed out. It was a cobalt bomb with uranium added to the center. Although this thing can be considered ancient, it has considerable lethality in space. The explosion range is enough to cover the small star field, and it will cause great damage to anything inside. Yang Mu almost reached out and grabbed Kun Sang's mecha, who was about to rush over, and ordered the entire team to immediately leave the battle and retreat to a place 10 kilometers away from here. The members of the 13th team immediately followed the order. The mecha turned around and quickly retreated, and the two missiles were fired the next moment. The streamlined needle-like objects flashed and flew out quickly, first piercing the two mechas, and then the next moment, a dazzling white light lit up, and the surrounding area expanded rapidly, and at the same time, the yellow and white light enveloped the surroundings. A corner of the universe suddenly lit up with dazzling light, and a layer of light waves visible to the naked eye pushed out, and the explosion light waves gradually swept the surrounding area dozens of miles. The mecha closest to the cobalt bomb was almost instantly vaporized under the ultra-high temperature, and the screams of the mecha soldiers and other mechas were also heard. Chapter 322 Explosion and Ambushes. In a dark area of the universe, it was as if someone had lit a huge firework, and suddenly a flower burst out diagonally, like two golden peonies placed back to back, showing the gorgeous flame of death to the universe. But no one would stop to admire this strange beauty. There was only the angry roar of the commander in the channel of the outpost mecha regiment, and countless shining mechas moving in the opposite direction. No one thought that the stealth ship was actually loaded with something more powerful than nuclear weapons. Such an explosion, as well as the explosive gamma-ray radiation value around it, all showed everyone that this explosion was extraordinary. Hold on, this was the word Yang Mu ordered to be displayed directly on the holographic helmet in front of him. The bright red font was displayed on the holographic helmets of everyone in the team. Everyone's mecha gathered together to resist the overwhelming explosion. At this moment, Yang Mu's entire team relied on two asteroids that were forcibly pulled together to block the team. As for the almost no communication at this moment, it was because when Yang Mu saw the weapon, he immediately activated the combat suit data liquid in everyone's mecha. This fluid, which was originally used to ensure the life of the driver after the mecha failed, now formed the last line of protection for the driver in terms of resisting the explosion shock wave and the radiation rays that can penetrate the heavy armor. Ordinary mecha armor is enough to resist the strong radiation brought by some high-energy weapons, but it is not the same when facing this thing. Under such a close-range explosion, the high temperature will directly destroy the surface of the mecha armor, and at the same time, it will make the material inside completely ineffective. Yang Mu made a prompt decision and thought of this thing. When everyone retreated to a distance of 10 kilometers, he directly released it remotely, filling everyone's combat suits. But the data liquid that can protect against radiation is not enough. It cannot resist the shock wave of the explosion and other things that were scattered by it. Yang Mu and Richard each pushed over a medium-sized asteroid almost at the last moment, and Richard fully opened the energy shield that could still be used to help the entire team block this powerful shock wave. Although the metro was inevitably damaged, fortunately Yang Mu and others still managed to survive. No one was in trouble, except that the driving action could not be performed to a large extent under the data liquid. The surrounding mecha teams were in a very bad situation, and no one survived. The Viper mechas and Nightblade mechas located in the center of the explosion were directly vaporized in the first moment of the explosion, and even the slag could not be found. The wreckage that occasionally floated around was the wreckage of some mechas on the periphery. These mechas were not able to realize the situation as quickly as Yang Mu's team and reached the dangerous range, and there was nothing to block the shock wave. They were almost destroyed in an instant. This time, the explosion completely crippled both sides. Yang Mu controlled the mecha to jump from behind the boulder, and saw that the center of this small star field was empty. The shock wave brought by the explosion cleared the core area and the surrounding area. Seeing this fierce and tragic scene, Shirley and others were pale, and their faces were no longer full of heroic spirit. Yang Mu had seen such a scene before. After taking a deep breath, he quickly controlled the mecha to drive forward. Kun sang behind him saw Yang Mu's action and immediately stopped him. "Captain, it's too dangerous over there, follow us, our people may be gone, and it will take time for reinforcements to arrive. We must ensure that everything is safe. Don't worry, there is data liquid in your combat uniforms, there will be no problem," Yang Mu said loudly, and then the mecha quickly moved forward. The team members saw that the captain had already moved forward, and when they saw that Yang Mu had almost saved them from a dead end, they did not hesitate at all and followed. But before they went far, there was a sudden surge in the dust not far away, and then the next moment, a slender ship body rushed out of it. "It's that stealth ship." Yang Mu stopped immediately after seeing this thing. The opponent was not directly annihilated in such an attack. Yang Mu was extremely surprised, but the next moment he controlled the mecha forward again. Because at this moment, the surface of the stealth ship was already riddled with holes, and the energy shield was no longer working. Obviously, their explosion was also a lose-lose choice. But seeing that the opponent was still struggling to go to the outside, Yang Mu was more determined to keep the opponent. This stealth ship was willing to sacrifice the lives of its comrades, fire such powerful shells, and even bet on its own ship to escape from here. What kind of secret is hidden? Yang Mu's mecha burst away. Obviously, the opponent no longer had any combat mecha to release, and the ship's guns on the hull were also lost. Only occasionally one or two light speeds swept by, which was already the end of the force. Yang Mu easily bypassed these light speeds, and then directly passed over the top of the opponent's ship. When it was about to pass by, Yang Mu's chainsword fiercely inserted into the top of the closed ship, sparks were aroused, and the whole mecha's forward momentum stagnated. The whole mecha was thrown forward, and at this time, the drill in Yang Mu's left hand had been raised high, and the high-speed rotating drill was about to approach the direction of the other starship control room and turned hard. It must be said that the shell of this stealth ship is very strong, but under such an impact, especially Yang Mu found a gap attack. The attack quickly disintegrated the opponent's external armor, and then Yang Mu directly kicked it hard, kicking out a big pit. The body of the mecha went directly outward, and Yang Mu also shouted loudly in the channel at this time, "Focus fire here." The team mechas that followed quickly opened fire, and Yang Long directly emptied his sniper rifle magazine. Each bullet drilled deeply into it, and the last bullet penetrated directly, and the entire armor structure of the starship could not support it. The air leaking from inside suddenly hit the entire armor violently, forming a large hole above the ship's cockpit, and the personnel inside were directly sprayed out and frozen into popsicles within 10 seconds. However, Yang Mu quickly landed again, glanced at the control panel, and saw that the self-destruct button had not been pressed, so he breathed a sigh of relief. The reason why Yang Mu advanced so quickly was to be able to break the opponent's defense in the shortest time, so that the opponent had no chance to activate the self-destruct device, so that he could take a good look at what the opponent's purpose was. The battle ended in an instant, and Yang Mu's team won the final victory. At the same time, it was also the only team with full personnel surviving in the entire area at this time. When Yang Mu was commanding the team to carefully clean up the things in other parts of the starship, the reinforcements arrived late. Mo Shan looked at the countless rubble and mecha fragments in the starry sky in front of him, and his expression was extremely ferocious. At this time, the voice of a team came from the channel. White Tiger Squadron 13 reports that they have captured the enemy ship with no casualties. The radiation in the center area is too strong, please enter with caution. Chapter 323 The Real Purpose. Search carefully, and pay attention to whether there are any things that have not been cleaned up. In the stealth ship, several mechas were traveling in it, and Mo Shan, who was floating outside the starship to command and dispatch, said so, and at the same time commanded the mecha soldiers who came to conduct rescue and search around. This stealth ship incident was successfully resolved under the attack of the White Tiger team in front of him, and the other party pushed the starship out of the contaminated area later. But what surprised Mo Shan the most was that this 5-man team actually survived such an explosion, and these people also filled their combat uniforms with data liquid at the most critical moment, successfully avoiding radiation contamination. Compared with the other 3 teams that were almost wiped out, the only 1 or 2 mecha soldiers left had to undergo long-term radiation treatment. The team leader named Yang Mu in front of him was so excellent that it was unbelievable. And looking at the cracks on the stealth ship, Mo Shan could even imagine how violently this team broke it in a short time to prevent the other party from self-destructing. Stay calm, respond to emergencies correctly, and attack the vital points accurately. This is the conclusion that Mo Shan came to about the team in front of him. The opponent's operation this time can even be included in the textbook as a typical case. This captain, who is less than 20 years old, has a maturity and wisdom that ordinary people can hardly believe. This White Tiger Mecha regiment really picked up a treasure. Mo Shan narrowed his eyes and looked at Yang Mu's halberd-cutting mecha not far away, and he actually had some other ideas. But a moment later, Yang Mu suddenly greeted Mo Shan in the channel. "Sir, I think there is something strange about this matter." "Huh? What's strange?" Mo Shan looked a little confused when he heard what Yang Mu suddenly said. Yang Mu's face was full of contemplation at this moment. This was Yang Mu's preliminary judgment after a rough inspection of the fire control system of the stealth ship. "After checking the control system, I found that in addition to a few cobalt bombs, the other party's launch slots were equipped with some very ordinary firepower configurations. Even the mobile forces carried by the stealth ship were only the 2 Nightblade teams and a crew of only a dozen people. Such a small number of people are controlling such a large starship. If, according to my previous assumption, this thing wants to plot against a fleet in the channel, this kind of personnel configuration, as well as this kind of cobalt bomb with a short range and a narrow explosion range, which can even be intercepted by firepower, does not seem to be suitable. The better attack on the fleet should be a super electromagnetic missile equipped with a radiation engine, plus a special proton missile on the whole body, which can not only paralyze the fleet's energy shield system with a high probability, but also attack starships with strong defense. Those weapons can easily break through the energy defense and can form a chain explosion, which is enough to cause significant damage to the fleet. But on this ship, there are no such weapons in the weapon slot. But why are the 2 mecha teams equipped with such sophisticated equipment? This stealth ship, which is so well equipped but refuses to provide sufficient personnel support. Is it just to wait for the starship fleet in this long channel and then launch an attack? Yang Mu did not dare to deny it, but he always felt something different in his heart, so after struggling for a while, Yang Mu still reported this situation to Mo Shan. After listening to all of Yang Mu's speculations, Mo Shan wanted to refute it directly, but realizing the other party's previous performance, Mo Shan lowered his head and thought about this problem carefully. But he was puzzled. At this time, the voice of the mecha team entering the stealth ship to search was heard in the channel. "Report to the captain, there is a discovery near the power cabin of the stealth ship. We think you need to come and take a look." Along with the speech, a picture was sent. In the picture, there are some bright golden balls. Such things are connected in a string and placed in a small enclosed cabin. Seeing such an emergency, Mo Shan was stunned for a moment, and then quickly controlled the mecha to go to the ship. Yang Mu, who saw the captain's action, although he didn't know why the captain didn't answer his question, immediately followed Mo Shan to the stealth ship. The 2 arrived near the power cabin of the ship and looked inside through a window that was forcibly opened. The mecha responsible for carefully searching the interior of the stealth ship did not find this place at first, but because it found that there was still space behind the steel plate after a scan, it cut a barrier and saw the things inside. This is a row of 5 huge spherical objects, which look similar to some floating mines, but the surface is unusually smooth and bright, and no signs can be seen. Everyone was puzzled, and Yang Mu, who saw this thing, suddenly unconsciously controlled the mecha to take a few steps back. Mo Shan, who was standing aside, quickly noticed Yang Mu's action and immediately asked, "Yang Mu, do you recognize this thing?" Yang Mu not only recognized it, but also remembered it deeply. This thing has a rough name, planetary bomb, which means that this thing has the power to destroy a star. And this name has a more professional name in the military, helium flash bomb. The warship that he was driving at the time was also loaded with tactical helium flash bombs, the number of which was several times more than here, and the helium flash bombs of PAJR were larger. This weapon is too confidential, and ordinary troops will never see it, so it is understandable that Mo Shan and others don't know about it. "Captain, immediately order people to block this place. Please use your authority to report this news to the military immediately. This is a tactical helium flash bomb." Helium flash bomb. Mo Shan was stunned when he heard this unfamiliar term, and then suddenly realized what it was and said in surprise. Yang Mu nodded cautiously, and then suddenly a light flashed in his mind, thinking of something else. Helium flash bomb. If it is a helium flash bomb, it is really terrible. The purpose of this stealth ship may not be the channel, but the space fortress of PAJR located behind. If you think like this, then it can explain why this warship does not carry so much firepower, and why the heavy weapons loaded are cobalt bombs. These people are simply dead soldiers, and the cobalt bombs are just weapons to tear open the defense system of the space fortress. The stealth ship loaded with these miniature helium flash bombs is the ultimate killer. Once it hits the space fortress, it can easily destroy the entire space fortress. And according to this time, it is almost this time, but in my original memory, the attack did not succeed. The stealth ship exploded in the distance of a PAJR space fortress, which only had a slight impact on the space fortress. I didn't expect that I would encounter such a thing this time. Yang Mu said this idea again to Mo Shan, who was talking to his superiors. Mo Shan got goosebumps all over his body when he heard this. If this is the case, Osa is here, it can be said to have torn its face, and actually chose to use this method to try to paralyze the entire logistics defense line of PAJR. And is there more than one such stealth ship? Is there already a ship very close to the space fortress? Mo Shan immediately reported the news, and at this time a strong flash flashed from the porthole beside. Yang Mu rushed out of the starship and looked up. In the distant direction, a bunch of yellow and white flowers unfolded, and countless thin lines lit up in the black deep space, as if weaving a starry sky scroll. Yang Mu, who as a captain, knew that it was the grand scene of the interstellar fleet's exchange of fire. Looking at all this, Yang Mu murmured to himself, "The war has begun." Chapter 324 New Equipment. The results of the escort mission were remarkable. First, the entire fleet arrived at the battlefield safely. At the same time, such a shocking incident was discovered, which undoubtedly made many officers nervous. In the next few days, the 7 outpost mecha regiments did not stop at all, and used space fortresses to conduct detailed screening around to prevent the infiltration of enemy fleets. As for the starship battle that appeared in the Starry Sea a few days ago, it had nothing to do with PAJR. At that time, the interstellar fleet was still some distance away from there. Instead, the PAA, which arrived first, and the OSA, which had been defending there, took the lead in exchanging fire. However, although the battle between the two sides seemed fierce, it was still a test. PAJR was unable to sit back and enjoy the fruits of its labor. Several fleets were secretly competing in the surrounding areas, and the most intense conflict had not yet broken out. On this day, when the Mecha regiment where Yang Mu's team was located had just completed the patrol mission and returned to the base for repair, it received a new order. The entire Mecha regiment now began to reorganize, and the mechas were replaced with equipment, and at the same time included in the battle sequence. Mo Shan, who received the order first, was a little bit unbelievable at first. After confirming it again and again, the expression on his face was not very exciting, but he was grinning all the time. Although a Rift team was lost in the Cobalt Bomb incident a few days ago, the strength of the entire regiment was not greatly weakened. It is estimated that the ability shown by the entire Mecha regiment made the superiors make such a decision in the end. Mo Shan immediately notified the Mecha team and the regiment of the news. Yang Mu, who was eating in the cafeteria, also received the news and shared it with the team members. "What? We are included in the battle sequence," Shirley shouted loudly when she heard the news, then quickly stopped talking, turned around and looked around, lowered her head and asked Yang Mu, who was sitting opposite. "Captain, this news is correct, right?" Yang Mu scanned the news again, then nodded in confirmation, and the faces of the 13th team were immediately full of smiles. Everyone present did not show any fear, but seemed very happy about such a thing. The only factor in this can only be the factor of military merit. No matter whether you have made merit on the front line or not, as long as you are included in the battle sequence, everyone will have military merit once the war is won. Moreover, in this level of battle, if the recorder determines that an individual has made military merit on the battlefield, then the final settlement will be doubled, whether it is used to exchange for military rank or money, which will allow everyone to keep up with the next level. Even if they unfortunately die, the team members will receive double military merit again, and the individual's military union will be immediately converted into double money and sent to their families together with a pension. This military merit system came from the hands of an army commander who had just entered the interstellar battle a long time ago. It is said that it adopted the long-standing military merit system in the history of PAJR and carried out modern innovations. This not only makes the combat effectiveness of the entire army soar, but also makes the army more respectful of force, military merit, and eager to fight. Of course, such a system is indeed very attractive to those who struggle from the bottom, but some people don't care too much about this because of their background, and even choose to avoid being added to the battle sequence. Chu Song is such an example. Yang Mu didn't care much, but he was also very happy to have such a result. Everyone hurriedly finished their food and returned to the mecha platform, but found that the mecha team belonging to the Rift Mecha Regiment was surrounded by large boxes. People wearing silver-white work clothes and maintenance personnel of each team were working on the mecha. Seeing this scene, Yang Mu immediately walked up and took a look at the box. There were some metal components inside, which looked familiar. The captain of the team in charge of maintenance, who was called Uncle Meng by Yang Mu, saw Yang Mu coming and immediately greeted him. Yang Mu also asked immediately, "Uncle Meng, what are you doing?" "Hey, some new equipment from above. It is said that it can improve the combat effectiveness of the mecha. I heard that the mecha teams entering the battle sequence are all changing to this thing, new equipment." Hearing this word, Yang Mu walked forward with a puzzled look on his face, wanting to see what it was with his own eyes. For Yang Mu, it is not good to make some modifications to the mecha at this time, because this may destroy the mecha state that the mecha soldiers have already run in. Rash changes may bring great hidden dangers to the next battle. Thinking of this, Yang Mu also climbed up the shelf and went forward to see the situation. He saw two people in silver-white work clothes busy in their cockpits, apparently modifying the somatosensory system. Yang Mu scanned these things again, and his eyes immediately lit up. Yang Mu was not unfamiliar with these things. This was the neural control system developed by Su Yuanming that he had seen at Kunlun College. It's just that now it seems that this system has been improved and has become more simple and sophisticated. Yang Mu immediately asked about the situation of this thing, especially whether it would affect driving, and whether traditional somatosensory operation could continue to be used. The installation staff said that this would not affect the use of any of the original parts of the mecha, and that somatosensory and neural operation could be selected according to the situation, but the other party strongly recommended the use of neural system operation. After learning this, Yang Mu was relieved and allowed the other party to modify it. There was also a mecha that had been modified not far away. The mecha soldier couldn't wait to use this thing, but at the beginning, his movements were always crooked, like a newborn baby toddling, but after only 10 minutes, the other party's movements immediately became smooth, and from time to time, he could hear the other party's excited shouts. People around gathered over and looked at this thing as if they were looking at a rare thing, but Yang Mu was quite emotional. This neural operation coordination is definitely a cross-era equipment that will bring innovation to the mecha, and the current cost of this thing is definitely not cheap. PAJR has spent a lot of money on this war. However, this thing has not been widely popularized after 20 years, even like his own Annihilation. It has always used the most primitive somatosensory operation. Could it be that because of my appearance, this thing began to appear earlier? Yang Mu shook his head, but immediately denied his idea. This thing had nothing to do with me. How could it appear so early because of me? The day after the mecha transformation was completed, the teams of the Rift Mecha Regiment and the White Tiger Mecha Regiment immediately set off on the shuttle ship and went to the fleet in the front battlefield to wait. The battle in front has already begun, and various forces are constantly competing in the Sea of Stars. Every day, a huge amount of resources are invested in the battle, and countless casualties are generated. The meat grinder-like battlefield appears again. Looking at the battle sequence of his team constantly replenishing on the war system, Yang Mu also clenched his fists tightly. Although I am not strong enough to change the trend of this war, now is the time for me to accumulate strength. Let me use my own strength to make some different changes to this war. Chapter 325 Interstellar War. When Yang Mu's mecha group arrived at an attack ship of the interstellar fleet, the starry battlefield was already devastated, with countless debris filling it. Thousands of starships were firing fiercely in the starry sky, and fighters and mechas shuttled between them, like a swarm of bees protecting the mother nest. The area of this battlefield extended to thousands of kilometers. In this vast battlefield, there were starships arrayed and bombarded each other, fighters and mechas chased and attacked, and starships alternately attacked and clamped each other. Precise tactics only existed in the core fleet headed by the interstellar mothership. As for the fighters and mechas of the details, they all had only one simple and crude purpose, which was to destroy any enemy mechas or fighters found in front of them. The fierce and anxious battle scene on the battlefield not far away was presented to everyone, and everyone's face was both excited and nervous. Soon after all the mechas were transported to the attack ship, many mechas that were replacing batteries immediately saw that the hatches of the entire launch platform were all opened, and at the same time, the red alarm sounded, and everyone immediately remembered the things in the past training. This was the signal that the ship was preparing to attack. All the captains were staring at the battle sequence of each team in the war system on the holographic helmet. Yang Mu was the same. He watched his team's battle sequence rise from more than 200 people. Now there were only 15 teams in the front. Yang Mu ordered the team members to warm up the mechas. After a few breaths, the 15 teams in front were all released. Yang Mu's team topped the list of the battle. This was the beginning of a large-scale battle. Sure enough, the next moment, a red bar appeared on the holographic helmets of the members of the 13th team, and immediately marked the approximate combat position of the team. A three-dimensional coordinate appeared on everyone's helmet, and the system automatically began combat navigation. 5 mechas that had already stood on the ejection position were quickly pushed out, and the next moment they appeared in the vast starry sky. Yang Mu immediately turned the mecha engine to the maximum, and the entire mecha leaned forward and quickly went to the target position, and behind it, the mechas of the team members followed closely. At the same time, beams of light kept passing by, and beams of various calibers from the starships passed through. Some unlucky people just happened to hit them, and were penetrated at best, and turned directly into powder at worst. The 13th team was obviously lucky. The whole team was moving forward at full speed. There were also countless comrade-in-arms mechas around them, all heading to this area. This was a slightly marginal position, but at this moment there was a silver-white hammerhead warship in it. This was an attack ship of PAA, but because the stall was pushed forward too far, this opportunity would naturally not be let go by a PAJR starship staff, and a mecha was quickly dispatched to destroy it. At this time, the opponent also invested troops, and dense fighters and mechas were released from the ship to meet Yang Mu and others who were coming directly. When the holographic helmet prompted that it was in range, Yang Mu quickly raised his weapon to attack, deftly avoiding the opponent's attack. The surrounding mechas launched a wave of heavy firepower attacks as soon as they entered the range. A row of brilliant sparks suddenly lit up in the middle of the battlefield between the two sides. These were the flames of their respective missiles that exploded after hitting each other. However, the explosion did not stop the two sides from approaching quickly. The faster fighter planes exchanged fire first, and after crossing each other, they quickly climbed up. The mecha teams that came from behind suddenly met in the starry sky. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to sideways to avoid the attack of an opponent's mecha. At the same time, he raised the chain sword in his hand and slashed it across the waist of the opponent's mecha, and then quickly confronted the other mechas in front of him. Such a battle was like a cavalry charge in an instant. Both sides looked for the most advantageous position to attack the enemy, then swept past, and then relied on the powerful strength of their respective mechas to twist their bodies in the shortest time, and then rushed into the battle again. Most of PAA's mechas were Fierce Falcon mechas, which were also the mainstream mechas equipped by the opponent's first-class mecha regiment. In terms of attack power, they were not inferior to Yang Mu's standard mechas that were also in the first-class mecha regiment. The opponent quickly turned around with the mobility of the mecha, and then joined the battle with the fighter. In this area, the figures of mechas and fighters were everywhere, and the fighters of both sides were mixed together, just to fight to the death. At this point, almost only the strength of the team and individuals can be relied on. Even because of this large-scale mecha melee, the classification between the mechas is not obvious. Yang Mu waved his dragon slang arm and hit the mecha in front of him hard. The powerful force forced the opponent to retreat. At this time, the chain sword in Yang Mu's right hand followed up and directly cut off half of the opponent's body. The mecha in front of him immediately lost its combat effectiveness. Yang Mu did not have time to be happy, but quickly looked at Yunlong's mecha not far away. Yunlong's mecha is a sniper mecha, which is actually not suitable for this kind of close-range combat, but when Yang Mu looked over, he saw that their 3 mechas were surrounding a small array. Shirley protected Yunlong's mecha in the middle, while Richard blocked any approaching mecha. Yunlong only focused on precise strikes. The 3 of them relied on each other, which prevented the surrounding mechas from approaching in a short time. As for Yang Mu and Kun Sang, the 2 of them were free in the battlefield, flexibly attacking various targets. Wow! This new system is really awesome. Shirley controlled the mecha to fire a few missiles, and then quickly controlled the mecha to dodge the opponent's attack, flipped the fuselage, and launched the attack again. The more sensitive neural operating system has greatly improved the flexibility and maneuverability of the entire mecha. Shirley's slightly bulky mecha can also easily perform some difficult movements. The surrounding comrades also felt the benefits of this new operating system. The entire mecha can make more precise movements in a shorter time. The mecha no longer has the same action delay as before. Instead, the mecha is like a piece of clothing on the body, which can be easily controlled. The current situation on the battlefield does not seem to have seen the advantages brought by this slight change, but Yang Mu and others' attacks have become more fierce. The halberd mecha drew a beautiful arc in space. Yang Mu fired a wave of missiles, directly sweeping the two fighters that were about to pass by in front. At the same time, the chainsword pierced one of the wreckage. The mecha changed its shape and threw the wreckage out accurately. A mecha not far away saw this and immediately prepared to respond, but was entangled by the mecha in front of it. Seeing the wreckage was about to pass by quickly, at this time a red mecha suddenly appeared from nowhere, and actually directly swept the wreckage with the tip of the long sword, and then picked it back to Yang Mu's direction. Seeing the wreckage that was blocked back, Yang Mu was surprised and swept it away, but he caught a glimpse of the red mecha coming towards him quickly at this moment, with a longsword in his hand cold and biting. The mechas of both sides collided quickly. Yang Mu's chainsword blocked most of the attacks, but the opponent still scratched a mark on the neck of the mecha. Yang Mu directly fired a wave of missiles to distance himself from the opponent. At this time, the opponent had turned around and fired missiles at the same time. The machine guns on the shoulders fired at the same time. He was not afraid of the flying missiles at all and rushed directly towards Yang Mu. It seems that this mecha has some skills. Yang Mu thought of this in his heart, and then immediately adjusted the fuselage and found the direction. He was also not afraid and rushed directly towards the opponent. The pilot in the mecha was almost disdainful when he saw Yang Mu's actions. He was proud. In his several years of mecha career, he had killed double-digit mechas. No one had ever been able to take on his attacks continuously, and they would be chopped into pieces by him in the end. The same was true for the seemingly arrogant guy in front of him. Thinking of this, the two mechas were approaching again. Both sides were waving their weapons at this moment. At this time, the Red Falcon mecha suddenly made an incredible move. The engine jet on the opponent's leg suddenly increased the jet force. The whole mecha suddenly turned sideways, and the two long swords pointed directly at Yang Mu's abdomen. Yang Mu immediately evaded, but the opponent's action was very timely and tricky. Yang Mu seemed to be unable to avoid it at this moment. But at this moment, I don't know if it was because Yang Mu was highly nervous or for some other reason, Yang Mu's brain suddenly buzzed, and then the scene in front of him suddenly slowed down, and the opponent's actions were also seen clearly. It was a long-lost strange state. Yang Mu made a prompt decision, and the mecha tilted to the side. At the same time, the chainsword in his right hand was reversed and thrust straight down. The tip of the sword was inserted straight into the opponent's cockpit. The driver inside was horrified, and a mouthful of blood sprayed into the holographic helmet, but he died just like that. All this ended in a flash. The top warrior died, and Yang Mu suddenly stood there, with a ferocious and dazed expression on his face. Because in this strange state, Yang Mu suddenly felt something different. In this strange state, Yang Mu's heart was suddenly hit at a certain moment, and then his whole brain was madly congested. And at the same time some weird fragments flashed wildly in his mind. It was asteroids, but it was spinning, and after that, a huge asteroid appeared. The image quickly rotated and pulled in, and then went deep into it, but suddenly stopped and disappeared. This sudden image appeared, and then disappeared quickly, as if it had never appeared, but the feeling of surging blood made Yang Mu stunned in place. Yang Mu could even hear his own breathing, and everything around him was slowly blurring. Yang Mu looked up and scanned the surroundings. The voices of his teammates in the channel became long and weird, but it seemed that something in the deep space was attracting him. What was that? Where is that? These two questions popped up in Yang Mu's mind, but before they could be answered, they were immediately interrupted, because Kun Sang reached Yang Mu's mecha, which was floating in the air and motionless, in the fastest time, helped Yang Mu block the attack, and shouted loudly, "Captain! Yang Mu! What are you doing?" Suddenly, a normal voice came back to Yang Mu's ears. Yang Mu came back to his senses, but saw a missile coming. Yang Mu only had time to raise his hand to defend. The missile hit the arm of this Hanji mecha and exploded. The whole mecha was quickly knocked away by the shock wave and turned over several times in space. When the team members saw Yang Mu's situation, they immediately moved closer to Yang Mu, and at the same time loudly asked about Yang Mu's situation. Yang Mu was awake at this moment, and stabilized the mecha in a moment, and then reported to his teammates that he was safe. But Yang Mu didn't have time to explain to them what happened to him, because the battle here was not over yet. As soon as Yang Mu stabilized the fuselage, an enemy mecha came up to him, as if they saw Yang Mu being hit and wanted to take this opportunity to kill him. But the result was obviously the opposite. Yang Mu rejoined the melee. The battle was extremely fierce. Both sides invested a large number of mecha troops and fought for the target several times. The mechas of both sides even had to rely on pure cold weapons to fight in the end. Yang Mu's team members were also injured in such attacks. Kunsang and Yanlong's mechas were attacked. Yanlong's mecha was directly dismantled, and then he forcibly withdrew from the battle with his own ability. Kunsang was even worse. While blocking an attack from the opponent, his armor was pried open by a missile, and the shrapnel rotated into the cockpit, injuring Kunsang. The cockpit was urgently sealed. Yang Mu saw the unmanned medical shuttle hook his mecha and quickly took it away from the battlefield. Shirley, on the other hand, did not suffer much damage with the help of Richard, thanks to the thicker body of the mecha, but the surface of the mecha was already mottled. As the last two batteries began to sound the alarm, Yang Mu and a group of mechas gradually withdrew from the battlefield. After the opponent's mechas were destroyed and counterattacked twice, they also stopped. The already riddled attack ship was also dragged back by the starships that came to reinforce the opponent. This battle almost became a refueling battle, but even if it didn't, the casualties on both sides were very heavy, and the new mecha regiment would immediately take over the battle. The battle between the stars actually looks simpler, because the entire starry sky is very empty and vast. And there is no ambush tactics. Once the two sides encounter each other, they almost rely on firepower suppression. Even in the early days, this rough tactic was even jokingly called the lineup shooting tactic of the interstellar era. Then, with a change of tactics, the starships began to face each other in a more three-dimensional combat form, while developing combat units of fighters and mechas to enhance combat power. However, the extremely tragic scene has not changed, and the number of starships on one side is almost a primary factor in whether a war can be won. Yang Mu's team returned to the attack ship in a panic. Many mechas were even pulled in by the shuttle. The entire delivery platform was almost full of broken mechas. The mechas on board were quickly scanned and selected by the system. The mechas that could continue to be used were pulled into the mecha repair platform, and the standard parts were replaced through the automatic device. The mechas that were too broken were immediately disassembled, and then the parts were used to repair other mechas. The maintenance work here was rough and simple. It didn't matter whether the mecha could reach the top performance. It only required that the mecha could guarantee the combat effectiveness and play a role in the next attack. Yang Mu got off the mecha and quickly asked about Kunsang's situation. He met Yanlong on the way. He learned from him that the opponent's thigh was cut by shrapnel. The other situation was unknown and he had been sent to the rear medical ship. The mechas of the two people were directly disassembled because they were too broken. It took time to allocate new mechas, and they could not join the battle for the time being. The mecha data was scanned the moment it returned to the ship, and then the supercomputer quickly analyzed it. Yang Mu just saw that his battle sequence turned into a red light for pause, but the next moment his battle sequence turned on the green light for standby. At the same time, the 5-man team was forcibly supplemented. Yang Mu looked at the two people who came to supplement, and one of them was Yu Wenqiu. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.